workshop of the Board of Trustees of the Venus Independent School District on April 11th, 2026 at 8:31 a.m.
Do I need to do this?
And we do have a quorum. Yeah. Okay. If everyone would please stand. Joe, do you mind doing the invocation?
Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning, Lord. Lord, we stop to thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. Lord, we ask you for wisdom. Lord, we ask you for protection for this nation, Lord. For the ones that wear the uniform, whether it be locally in our fire and police or whether it be our military, Lord. Put your hand over them and keep everyone safe, Lord. Lord, continue to bless this community. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody who's here today. Thank you for coming. Nobody signed up for public comment. Do we have a need for executive session? Anybody have a need for executive session? Okay, so we'll go to item number 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Consider and approve the 2026-2027 academic calendar. Are those printed off?
No, ma'am, I did not print them off. That is the selection was option number 1, which has the football Fridays or is built out that Mrs. Vega presented last board meeting. It's the ones that, again, that was made so we can accommodate the football schedule and encourage some participation in our sports. The kids come on Friday when we have home games and we have football games. It's a 153-day calendar, ma'am.
Okay, so to be clear, our last meeting, we tabled the calendars. And we were looking at some things that would, to maybe change the calendar. A couple of things would have been some additional instructional days for our students for 10 more days, but no additional days for our teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would have also been able to give us a grant.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. It is correct, but I feel at this here time, it's going to, I need to build some buy-in with the staff and roll it out slowly and also with the community also. It's just about timing. We do need additional instructional days, but it's about timing, and that's something I need to build in as we go on prepping the staff for possibly next year instead of this here year, ma'am.
But it wouldn't have been any additional days for our staff.
No, ma'am. The staff is on 166 contract, no additional days for our staff.
So what do we have to prep?
You have to build in that staff capacity. Understand that, hey, we are switching. We have to change up the also professional development schedule. It takes time to plan those things, ma'am. And I just like to be methodical in planning those professional development days, vice just putting something together, and it needs to be more meaningful for that staff.
Okay, so by our students not coming for 10 additional days and not increasing anybody's amount of days they have to be here, and they're missing out on 10 additional days of instruction, we're also missing out on over $1 million over a 3-year period. Can you tell me what that would have been used for?
That would have been used to pay for, like, for instance here, pay for stipends for staff members, pay for intervention services, pay for help that the LIFT grant provides. So the way that those grants work, you have to spend 70% on services for the students, and 30% can be used as the district for whatever. Like, say, for instance here, if you want to pick a group of staff members to provide intervention at the school for stipends and things like that. So 70% for services, 30% for staff members.
And now that's off the table, and it might be off the table for next year.
They typically have that grant available every year dependent upon funds. They don't come out and guarantee it because, again, it is dependent upon funds, but typically they've had that every year.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
The way I took it is that the staff, the teachers, have those, even though they're here, they do not have the kids there with them. They have that for planning, collaboration, and such. If you put the kids there for another 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, whatever, there's a possibility that they would view that as additional workload and take away their planning time, collaboration time and such. So I understand why Mr. Gatewood was hesitant to do that because of possibly a morale problem with the teachers.
So, but we used to be a 187, and now we're at 166.
And we possibly could go back to a 187 if our scores aren't up, so
And
10 days or
so,
22 days.
just to be clear, we didn't want, I just want to make sure our true north is our students. So I'm just taking that as 10 more instructional days really won't make a difference on how our students do on testing and learning. 10 days really isn't that big of a deal when we're teaching our students.
When we said they could possibly be half a days.
Well, every minute is, long as it's intentional, is important, ma'am. And we've made some clear adjustments to be intentional with our learning. Like, for instance, here, brought Dr. Vega in. The first change she made was instead of instructional coaches being housed at the curriculum department, they're actually in the campus assisting teachers directly in classrooms. So we're much more intentional with our PLCs. We're following the certain format. We internalize a lesson plan. So we're intentional. So if we are just throwing extra days out, that's not helpful. If we're throwing extra days out, that needs to be planned carefully. This is how we're going to utilize those days. This is what's going on with them. So it is a balance between, if we roll it out right now, is it really worth, the way I look at it, is it really worth right now this here time impacting the staff morale? Or I haven't planned for those 10 additional days built in for PD and making them useful to the staff. Don't want to just throw extra time at them. And Mr. Russell is right. At this time, the staff would view that as just, even though they're here working, okay, now I don't have that particular planning time. The students are here. I don't have that planning time to develop lesson plans, look at that data, to internalize things, to ensure that we are focused on our true north for students. So right now, we just still need that time, ma'am. And if we are going to build something in the future, that's something that I've got to clearly communicate the why we're doing it, why we're adding extra student times. Right now, I really don't have that why. I'll wait until our scores come back, and then we'll adjust. I'm hoping, like for instance here, the 7th grade math, putting that instructional coach in there, looking at their common-based assessments and their benchmarks from their blitz, they've actually doubled the percentage of students passing on that there. So I'm hoping to get some great impact on the adjustments we've made. And if we haven't, we'll adjust from there, ma'am.
Hope's really not a strategy though, right?
No, ma'am, we're intentional. Hope's not a strategy, but I believe with the things based off the data, looking at that data, looking at our scores, we've made great strides.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, can I ask a question about the grant and who all it benefits? Because if we're adding 10 instructional days, right, we're switching some of those, I assume we would switch some of those Fridays to instructional days, which that's 10 weeks essentially, right? And so if we're adding 10 days, right, I would assume it's 10 additional weeks, which if I'm looking at the calendar, that puts us almost through the first semester, which means we wouldn't, the first semester, we truly wouldn't be a 4-day instructional week. We would still have our kids 10 extra weeks. To me, as a parent who would have a child in some type of childcare, right, we've already asked our parents to adjust and make arrangements for their children and adjust their work schedules to accommodate the Friday. And then if we do add 10 additional days where they are in school, that again impacts our parents again to kind of readjust. And not only that, just for a portion of the year. So for me as a parent, consistency is key, right? Being able to predict a calendar, because I can only understand when I was an hourly employee or some of the work that we have to do, some of that's not feasible, right? To consistently switch a work schedule. So to me, consistency is key. And so I would like to see us be a little bit more consistent. Are we a 4-day or are we a hybrid, right? Because to me, that almost sounds like a hybrid if we're adding 10 more days. But to switch it, if we're saying we switch to the 10 additional days, is that grant guaranteed? Or are we just throwing 10 days on there with the hope of getting the grant? And then who all does that grant benefit? Is it every teacher will benefit from that grant? That we're applying some of those 30%? Will all of our students benefit from some of that 70%? Or are we just looking at certain pockets of kids?
Yes, ma'am. We're looking at all students benefiting. My goal here is to apply that grant money to improve our Tier 1 instruction. What I typically see since serving as superintendent is that we have a lot of intervention going on. And intervention is just trying to fix things. But if we can prevent students from being in an intervention, that is a win. To improve the district all around, we have to improve our Tier 1 instruction. We got to have a solid plan to do that. That'll benefit all students. Now back to your other question about the grant. One caveat I want to mention, we have actually, the deadline to miss the deadline to get that grant for next year has actually passed because they moved on from us. We're not eligible to apply that till next year. Because the lady was waiting, and she couldn't wait any longer on a decision whether we're going to participate or not. So we'd have to apply for that grant next year anyway. But we are getting support, whether we get that grant or not. We're getting additional support because we're adopting the Bluebonnet curriculum from Region 11. So we're going to get additional support to improve our Tier 1 instruction anyway, which is my goal. It's not really about the money to me. It's just about, can we improve our Tier 1 instruction? And we are headed down the right direction with improving our Tier 1 instruction, putting our instructional coaches on the campus. So we've made some major strides in our PLC. We have done things to shore up our Tier 1 instruction. That is what we're aiming for, ma'am.
I just got a couple comments. Number one, I hope in the future we better plan for this. I agree with both sides of it. I definitely agree with the decision to put it off, just because I think stakeholders ought to be involved in that calendar decision. That we did involve them in the calendar. We developed, both parents and faculty and staff. So, you know, to go back now and say, thanks for all your work, but we're going to go to a different calendar. But also on the flip side, like Ms. Gore said, I think, you know, a little more planning going in. We've known about this grant for years, you know, and just I wish would have worked that in somehow. And, you know, I don't know why that just popped up last board meeting and went, hey, what about this grant? And you brought it up. So, you know, thanks for that. I just wish, I don't want to say you, because I don't want to put the blame on anybody. I wish somebody would have seen that grant, you know, 6 months ago, and we could have made that a calendar option. I know hindsight's 20/20 and great, it's passed, so there's no sense of beating it up right now. But that's my wish, is that the planning part, whether we have an assistant superintendent, everybody else on staff, that would have said, hey, let's keep in mind this grant we have, and so in planning that calendar, let's make that an option for the parents to look at. And then, like she said, that would have given the parents not only the 5 months we've been planning the calendar, but all summer to make those parental plans to have the kids watched. So,
now, Mr. Buck, in defense, we did apply for that grant. The 165 days was something that TEA put in at the last minute, because when we log in to apply for the grant, the first question is the first year to ask that. They ask, are you 165 days of instruction or more? The minute I answer no on that, it moves us down to a priority number 5. So this is the first time a TA put that in there. So it was a new wrinkle for us to do, sir.
Well, but, yeah, so going forward.
So this is the only calendar that we have that we need to
Yes, ma'am.
vote on? Okay.
I thought the whole reason for the postponing this was to get the extra days. If we didn't really need to do that, or weren't going to, why didn't we already have this done last month? I mean, because we've put a lot of effort and conversation into trying to make this calendar fit what we thought was what we were wanting. And then now, since we've done it, we're just back to where we started, and we really didn't need it to start with. So it seems like the whole thing was an extra effort. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the calendar right now if it hadn't been brought up to our attention that we were going for something else.
I don't think allowing for extra time is a bad thing. I think if we tabled it and allowed him to make decisions or make sure that that was the actual decision, I mean, giving him an opportunity to thoroughly vet that out, right? There could have been an alternate resolution, but I think giving him the appropriate time to make sure that we didn't miss anything, even though it was the original calendar, that's okay. But now we can say that we at least took a look at it and we didn't just make a decision with all the right information. I feel okay about that.
I think it goes back to what Randall said, we just need better planning.
Absolutely.
Before it's all last minute, we gotta hurry up and do something, hurry up and do something. Do we have a motion? Or does anybody have any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we pass the calendar as presented.
Have a motion by Greg, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kirby, all in favor? Motion passes. We go to item 8, budget workshop.
All right, President Gore, members of the board, good morning. This will be the third budget I've been a part of since I've been here. And historically, these budget workshops are 30 minutes before a board meeting, and there's just not a lot of information, a lot of time for information to be given and to hear requests from you and make sure everybody understands what's going into the budget building process. So this is the first long form budget workshop we've done in a very long time, and just like with anything that's the first, it's a starting point. So if there's something that I'm not covering today, if there's a question that you have, if there's a category or a general area of information that is missing and you want to know more about, please let me know. I'd like to include it in the next budget workshop. So I want to improve on this process. So where we're at in the actual budget timeline right now, so we're in April. I'm coordinating with Domain and HR for payroll projections and staffing. We do have the calendar selected, so now we can build the pay dates and pay calendars into the system, and that way we can properly project our payroll for next year. Once we get to the end of April, we're going to get our preliminary values from the Central Appraisal District. Once we have that, we have the payroll projections, the preliminary values, then we can plug it and then really look at what our budget is going to be for the next upcoming fiscal or school year. Once we get into May, we're looking at a second budget workshop with final calculations. I'd like to have another meeting like this because we'll actually have numbers we can look at, revenue codes, payroll projection, not projections, but allocated payroll, and then we can run over anything like that. Of course, going for our compensation plans and stipends list, and then shooting for final approval in May. Depending on when we do that second budget workshop, so we have the board meeting in May, we could have graduation is the 23rd, so we could try to have a budget workshop before graduation the weekend before, or we can have a budget workshop after that, and then that would put final approval in June. It just kind of depends on people's schedules, how we want to do that, but I am looking at about mid-May that week having final budget numbers. So however we decide as a board, as a group, to get that a final approval path going, we have some options, especially if we want to have a longer, here's the budget, here's where we're going, here's this, that way we can really dive into stuff. So we have time to kind of plan how that wants to play out. As far as the budgeting process that has gone into 22, 23, 23, 24, they were very reactionary budget planning years. Those were years where it was not a lot of long-term focus. Maybe we're going to fix it next year. Let's just roll it forward. One of the things at the high school was, since I've been here, is theater was funded and for 22, 23, 23, and we don't have a theater department. So it's stuff like that where we've taken the time to, now that's done at the campus level. Sometimes the budgets are just rolled forward like that, and then if somebody sees a line code, they had money there, they put it in there. So that's part of the thing that I've done, is I've worked with campus secretaries and campus principals to make sure you're owning your budget, you know, make sure you have the proper money in whatever function that you need, make sure you're allocating it where you need it. What we're trying to do is the recalibration. We're trying to incorporate more long-term planning, structural alignment, And then a big thing is having staffing tied to enrollment reality. Part of the recalibration you'll see on the next slide is we've really focused on our core spending budgets outside of payroll. That's been a really big part of the recalibration that we've been working on. The next step in the recalibration is making sure that we have our staffing numbers tied to our enrollment versus campus. If a campus goes up, campus goes down. That's what we're trying to go for with that recalibration. There's a lot of times where we look at functions and we look at object codes, and this is the very zoomed out view of what we had this year. So you're looking at, this is the recalibration we were talking about, whether it's supplies, contracted services, campus budgets, any sort of departmental budget is in this 20% right here. We are looking at our payroll being about 80% of our allocated budget. That is something that is next on the recalibration, developing a staffing model to make sure that we are properly having staff where it needs to be. We're not overstaffed in certain areas or understaffed in certain areas. And really what we're trying to do is just build the framework, because we are anticipating more student growth. We're anticipating more people being involved in Venus ISD. We want to make sure that we have the proper steps and procedures right here to make sure if we're bringing on a new position, does it justify? Are the numbers justified? Would it be better served at this particular department or this particular campus? On this part right here, this is where we really hammered down 23, 24. It was, I don't want to call it messy, but it was not a lot of lines drawn in, we got to pay for this, so who can chip in and do this? You know, part of the 24, 25 thing that we did was really organize this into, this is your budget. You know, if you've paid for this because somebody told you to pay for this 2 years ago, we're going to remove that as more of a district expense, and then have your budget actually be curriculum and instruction supplies and stuff like that, not having an inflated budget, but I just pay 80% of my budget is software. Okay, well, let's remove that so we can actually look at what a curriculum and instruction budget is outside of, you know, what do you need to operate. So that's a lot of the stuff that we really focused on, was cleaning this up, and that's going to be the next step, is making sure that we have the proper steps to make sure payroll, when it's brought on, it justifies with what we need as a district.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You just, like, I know with, for instance, on Ms. Buck's campus, TSA.
Mm-hmm.
So she budgeted all of her TSA stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back a year ago and said, we don't want you to budget any of that anymore. We're going to take care of that at the district level.
Mm-hmm.
But every year, the conference goes, well, I don't know if we're going to have that money. I don't know if we're going to have that money. I don't have the money. She has the ability to budget that to where they guarantee the money's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious. I know it sounds like we cleaned it up, but then on the other hand, she had the money budgeted on the average of what it was last year. You know, we took X number of kids to nationals, X number of kids to state. But then when the district's responsible for it, it just seems like there's a little up in the air of whether that money's going to be there, especially this late in the year. You know, anytime you have this big kitty of money at the district level, if somebody else uses it before TSA Nationals comes along, which is expensive. I just say that now because that's coming up pretty quick. I guess y'all probably got all that worked out, but
It is, so there's like a CTE allotment that we have at the middle school, and that contributed towards any sort of post-district travel, you know, including TSA. Going into this year, we set up a post-district fund, an allocation for if anybody was going, I think it was state, and then if you're going to nationals, that's where that funding would come from. So with that CTE allotment, that was for their regionals and state style travel, and then the national style will come out of that post district. I did not set the post district amount.
let me clarify my question a little bit.
Okay.
So at the district level, we're currently putting that post district quote unquote in there. If the athletic director budgeted his budget for post district competition, what if the money we choose to put in at the district level in this kitty, in this fund, is X? What if football makes the playoffs and we didn't plan for them to, and they go 3 rounds, which we definitely didn't plan for them to do, and then basketball makes it, girls basketball makes it, and oh my gosh, we had 3 guys that made regionals in track, and then one year when I was a principal, we had 2 guys that made the state track meet, and it just happens to be this year that that all the teams make the playoffs, and what if the $20,000 we put in that kitty, and then all of a sudden TSA comes along, they go in June, they're the last event for the whole year, and we go, hey, guys, sorry, those 42 kids are going to go to nationals. We're going to have to start having the hard conversations because, you know, it all just came down to the fact, and I'm sure the district would work it out, or they'd come back and ask the board. I'm just curious what was wrong with athletics scheduling their athletic budget.
So nobody has tapped into, if athletics made state, like you said, that would have tapped into it. This is the first year where we actually did set aside post-district funding. So just like the first time you do anything, all of a sudden, hey, this group's going to go here. You start to hear about, when you ask people, almost a year before, because a lot of the state or national stuff's really kind of coming in March, April, May. So we don't really know, we didn't know what some of these groups were going to be going towards state. And so this is the first year we do it. Now we have a better idea of what groups are going, and it's just trying to improve on that. This is.
Make sure that we don't have, softball had made the playoffs, and they could be, if they went that 3 rounds deep like they did, I want to make sure that is budgeted well enough to where we're not having to tell these people, well, we got to wait and see.
Yeah.
Wait and see, because, I hope that question came out. I want to make sure that these programs are funded well enough where they're not having to put a bunch of time and stress into, well, I don't know if we're going to be funded. I don't know if we're going to be funded. I don't know if we're going to be funded. If they make nationals, then the district ought to come up with the money to send them to nationals. Or, we've had strong conversations about, we had a assistant principal of the year that goes to Washington DC, and it seems like there's all these conversations about, well, I don't know if they can go. I don't know if this number of people can go. It just seems like if there's major awards and we're pinching pennies, not allowing people to go to these conferences or something like that, like we're trying to save money instead of celebrating successes, whether it be kid successes or faculty successes. And like I said, I get a lot of that with Ms. Buck being administrator, so I guess I have an unfair pipeline right there. But it just seems there's a lot of conversations where I want to make sure that's well funded enough to where our employees don't have to worry about that, and our students don't have to worry about that funding.
Yeah, it is, this being the first year where we're getting accurate data points that we can build on. So now I can, group A, B, C, D, E. These looks like the core groups that we're going to be going to some sort of national style thing. Then we can actually look in there and see, well, where's nationals next year? You can try to build cost off it. It is, we have the data now, and trying to make sure things are funded. And
like you're on top of it, so
yes, sir.
Can I ask a question? And if this is too far down the rabbit hole, please tell me it's not appropriate. When we're well, sometimes I'll follow you.
Stay in your lane.
You open the portal, I'm going in after you. So when we talk about like post-district or what do we say? Yeah, post-district.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear TSA and then I hear athletics. So talk to me a little bit about, because in my head I can see athletics has the ability, maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe I'm misunderstanding, clarify that they have the ability to almost replenish some of those funds. So if they're hosting, like if we say softball, if they're hosting their softball tournament, is that essentially the money they make off of that, does that go back into their budget, right? So I can see athletics has the ability to maybe fund some of their own things just by some of their activities, right? Basketball does a basketball tournament, whatever their portion of that is, right, outside of running the tournament. But when we're talking about like middle school or TSA or things like that, Taffy, I know we talked about Taffy, do they also have the ability to kind of put back into their fund, right? Because I can understand like athletics, you have a budget, right? But we do also have other things, ticket sales, and I don't know where all those go, but they kind of have the ability to put back into their funds. I can see where middle school TSA maybe doesn't, but would they have an opportunity to also kind of raise that money to account for other expenses?
Yeah, high school TSA and Taffy
Richard.
and any of those. I don't want to say just TSA. That just happens to be the one that's going on right now. Well, Taffy and all that. Taffy's going to Oregon, TSA. But you also have. I would love to have NHS involved a little bit more. Once we get a sponsor, somebody who's there's all kind of conferences stuff those NHS kids can go to, or student council, and I just want to make sure the travel is there for kids. That regardless of what athletics, they have a budget. A very, 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 very healthy budget, probably even more so than the campus level. If you look at their budget, it's almost triple what an academic budget level is for the campus. And then, anyway, sorry.
So you do get down to where, like Mr. Buck said, athletics is, does have a lot of funds in the athletic fund. And so you do get down to where once purchasing closes down, if there's room in their budget, we can try to use that towards post district. That is something to where, we are on a budget here at a school district. So being able to have funding left over from your core allocation from the beginning of the year, being able to use that and have that as a spillover, that's something that we're trying to work towards. But also, it's a good problem to have where if students are successful and they're going on to compete and do different things, we do want to make sure that they can go and do that. It is still, budget is tight, and so there's just a lot of trying to work together to make sure if there is funding in the core account, maybe we can utilize that first and have that spill over, whatever that may be, but trying to coordinate with groups and allocating for post district. But also if your core budget does have that room in there, maybe we can utilize that first and use the spillover from there.
So I don't know if I asked my question or my question answered. So we talk about a budget, right? So we're saying the athletic budget is the athletic budget. Middle school has its budget, but throughout the year, when we're talking about athletics, we have ticket sales, we have tournaments, a lot of those things. Where is that money going? Is that going back into the athletic budget? Like, is that replenishing?
So that goes, we have a 57XX is our revenue code for local revenue that comes in. So it goes into our revenue code. So essentially but essentially with the 57 revenue code, let's say we have softball and they're funded for, let's just say $1,000. It's more than that, but $1,000. And then we're projecting a softball tournament for $1,000. So those softball, let's say blank ISD pays us $100 to play in that tournament. It doesn't necessarily go into the supply account. We're anticipating that we're going to take in $1,000 in softball revenue. So then we create the offsetting supply account for softball, if that makes sense. So as these come in, we're hitting the revenue account because we're projecting that revenue's coming in, and that's why we've allocated that money there.
It goes to the general fund.
It goes to the general fund.
Like all your football ticket sales
And
goes to the general fund.
okay, and so when we're talking about general fund, and maybe you'll show that to us here shortly. So that general fund goes to the entire district?
It goes into the general fund, but we've created the offsetting part of the calculations in supplies accounts for something like athletics does involve looking at what are we taking in for actual general revenue.
Okay.
Because they have to pay for their umpires and refs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's just the costs that go into it and different things like that. We can't, it's hard to just deposit money straight into a supply account because it has to go to the revenue side because we're bringing it in as revenue.
Yeah.
There are some times where maybe an athletic group does something and it goes to their activity fund. That's not like a core revenue style thing, so that may be kind of where it's going directly to that program. But it is built into our local revenue as, we have different tournaments that, like powerlifting tournament. Those go into our local revenue, which helps make sure that we're funding athletics on a certain, if we're funding this, if we're expecting $2,000 in powerlifting teams to come compete, then it makes it easy for Gober to say, all right, we're going to allocate $2,000 to powerlifting.
Okay.
I think we beat this up, in my fault, but so athletics had a budget. Athletics had to budget for their post-district competitions. But they had to at least put the thought of what if football makes 3 rounds deep. So we got to budget this much. And basketball 3 rounds, girls basketball, golf, tennis, everybody, they had to budget that. So over the last few years, the athletic budget has gone up every year. Not a problem with that. But last year we took all the post-district stuff and kind of put it on the district side. But the athletic budget didn't go down. So if they had to budget $50,000 in a year, just in case every athletic team went to the playoffs post-district, they had to budget that $50,000. But now the district has taken over that, but the athletic budget didn't go down $50,000. So now they just got a bonus $50,000 to spend, and I just say that because the conversation came up earlier this year about clothes, and you have TSA and some of these other programs that are somebody's word out that we're not sure money's going to be there, but then athletics was having a budget probably more than $50,000 if you figure if every athletic team makes the playoffs, you have to budget for that, and then they just got this bonus because the district took over the post district. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I know you're just new here recently, so I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but what happened to that, and why did we take the $80,000, whatever it is, it could be $100,000 away from athletics because they no longer have to plan for post-district competition?
The way the athletic, at least if we're talking athletic budget right now, there are core travel accounts in there. I don't know if Gober actually allocates a certain percentage of his athletic budget to just dedicated pure post-district style funding. With the like the CTE VMS, it was the same style thing because that would be travel out of that core budget, and we did move that over into the post-district. We didn't move it out of the post-district funding, but we had that same methodology of this $45,000 that was CTE STEM focused is we've remained that the same and did not expect that to be national funded.
Let me apologize. I don't necessarily need you to answer me right now. I just want you to put thought into our next budget hearing. If that's the case, I'm asking you a lot of stuff right now, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, give me a chance to look at it." So just look at it, and if that's the case that we've taken over that, maybe swiping that 50 grand or 80 grand, whatever it is, from whoever. It doesn't have to be athletics. For people listening, I'm not against athletics, and I hope I want everything to be. But if that's the case, the district's taking over all post-secondary, all post-district competition, let's bring that money back to the kitty over here to where everybody, whether it be welding, a CTE program, or anybody has, maybe that pocket of money is a lot bigger, and then, everybody gave up their share. I know every campus gave up a certain share this year to make budget. So just think about that when you're looking at it.
That's what we tried to do with the post district is try to remain in the core budget, try to remain that allocation there, outside of whatever cuts we did last year, and then just try to find it within outside of those budgets, trying to find that post district funding, so that way they weren't necessarily taking that hit because,
Are we looking also historically at? And again, I'm kind of like you. I'm not against sports. Okay, I'm not. But are we looking at our student and staff successes historically that are consistent? Because I know that there are a lot of departments, a lot of areas that, in speaking about, their successes, that as a parent of a child who was in one of those that was successful in what she did, parents are also funding a lot of what their kids are doing because there's no budget there, because the budget is minimal. Are we looking at at funding the successful programs and maybe looking at things that we're historically not doing well at, or even stuff like that? Because I just want to make sure that we're looking at what the kids are doing and what they're successful at, and making sure that they have that funding to go to nationals and all that, and not just funding what's the norm or what's popular.
Yeah, so we have our core athletics budget, and if there's a group at a campus or something like that that is successful, the way we do campus budgets now is we give the campus principal and their secretary, this is your amount. This is your amount. I'm not on your campus daily. I don't know what group is improving. I don't know what group is not doing good. It does no good for me to allocate English at the high school. I'm not involved with that teacher. I don't talk to that teacher a lot. So the way we handle that is we give, this is your campus allocation. We have pre-budget meetings before we do the budget to say, hey, is there anything going on? Is there something happening? Is this group doing whatever? And so we leave it on the campuses to take, but basically what you're saying is if this group is excelling, make sure you're putting as a campus principal, because I may not know that group's excelling until maybe a Facebook post or something like that. So we do give them a certain funding, and we leave it up to them to allocate based on their campus needs.
But didn't you say that funding at the middle school was not taken away from, but the responsibility of allocating that funding for the TSA or whatever it was you said went to the district responsible?
There was a.
It was moved from campus.
Yeah,
From
there
their,
was
that's what I'm saying.
the
their
campus administration
responsibility.
was scheduled, budgeted for
So-
post-secondary, and now that, which I'm not saying that's not a bad idea. Y'all do this every day. I don't.
Well, I guess I'm just confused on, you're saying that, you hand it to them, and rightly, so you're not dealing with that campus every day. But then on the other side, we're hearing that part of those responsibilities of the campus saying, I'd like to allocate this money for this area, was taken back to the district doing it. I'm just confused on what the
So-
difference is.
Essentially, what we did was left those budgets at the same, and then on the backside, just found enough funding to create a post district. So we didn't take, let's say Gober had 25 for post district. We didn't take 25 and say this is our post district money now. We left those relatively the same, and then just found it in our, reorganizing things to build our own post district funding. So it is just a completely different funding source where we didn't say, all right, this group give us 5, you give us 5, you give us 10. This is our post district because we took it from you. We created our own separate fund outside of those original funding amounts.
So it's still Mr. Camacho's responsibility to say, for the last 3 years, I've had 5 girls or 5 kids go to Taffy, district, regional, state, national. So district is this much money, regional's this much money, state's this much money, national's this much money. So projecting, Mr. Lanston, I need for Taffy, this is how much money we most likely are gonna need for, according to the last 3 years, we've sent. So Mr. Camacho would do that for his Taffy, for his NHS, his whatever it is. They still have that, and then that determines how much money goes in that post-secondary kitty.
So this is the first year where we've allocated the post district funding, and this is the first year we're getting data coming in on who's actually going to nationals, So that's where we have that data. Now we're going to build on it. So now we know Taffy Nationals, we know TSN, those things are given, but you don't really know until you open it up and say, hey, we do have post district funding. I was talking to Ms. Camacho, and she's like, hey, we have floor people that are going to, nationals or state or something. I'm like, so it's little things like that where you may have 5 or 6 little groups where we're sending a couple kids you just don't know about because it's never been opened up to say, hey, if you have post district, let us know. So we're gathering that data and then trying to actually take this post district fund and then build it on what we actually have moving and breathing on the campus. That's what we're trying to do. But prior to that, we never had this fund. It was just kind of scramble. It was that reactionary budgetary, so we're trying to recalibrate. But this is the first year we actually have data to build groups on and know who's actually going to be going places.
I just want to make sure that being that our true north is these kids, never having to tell a kid, you've worked hard, you've been successful, you've beat everybody else in the nation, we can't afford to send you.
Yeah.
That's just something that should never and can never happen.
Well, that would come back to then Mr. Gatewood coming to us and we would do a budget amendment.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I agree with you. There's in
And I know
no
we would.
way can I imagine that we would not do that. And if we have people who don't know that the district can help them, like you're saying, we have a lot of parents that are just out all of this money. It needs to be fair and equal no matter what the student is participating in. And maybe they don't know, and maybe that's something that we educate our whoever's over that group to know, hey, if y'all are doing this and y'all need money for this, y'all need to let us know so we can help y'all out. And maybe because those people come and go and take over different areas.
Well, and
so
I think historically it's been one of those things where they have brought it up to who's above them, and then somehow they were told, well, there's just no money for that. Whether or not it was ever actually taken to the
Right.
board or anything about
Yeah.
that, I don't know.
yeah.
Or I think it really goes back to planning, because some of them, it's like, we're not pre-planning and saying, hey, campus, I might have 6 FFA students that do X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh gosh, we had 6 students make FFA, give me the funds now. So it's one of those balances,
Yeah.
right, of like making sure that as parents, yeah, absolutely we can see that our kids might be successful, but it's making sure that the campus understands that they have to proactively put forth that effort and not come and go, well, hey, I had 6 kids make it, so figure it out, right?
And
Because there has to be a little bit of balance there.
And if I'm understanding what you're saying is you're building that data structure now.
That is. We finally have data coming in, and once you get the data in, it's communicate. Okay, now we know to say, hey, if you're anticipating post-district, let's meet up in the fall because most of your post-district is going to be in the spring. And so, but yes, basically what you said is this is the first year where we've opened it up and we have that data coming in, building the framework for that data to come in, make sure it's properly funded. It is. And then you've just got things depending on where the city's at. There's sometimes where it just depends where the city's at. If it involves airfare, if it involves this. So there's just a lot of variables that go into that. But it is something that I do want to, it's a good problem to have if kids are successful and they need to go on to compete and show the hard work they put in, it's a good problem to have. And so figuring out the framework in which that data comes in is very important. It's just, there's a lot of variables that go into it.
Yes, and I'd like to add one thing. Okay, speaking of TSA, and I'll just talk on that in detail. The prices pretty much doubled. You know what's going on with the world with inflation and travel, pretty much doubled. And we want to narrow those numbers down as tight as possible to the list of kids. We can't just say, okay, we had, just throwing a number, 74 kids go compete in state. Let's assume those kids are all going to nationals. Let's just buy those tickets, because and all of a sudden now only 40 of them we can't get a refund for those additional 34 tickets. And tickets now, I don't know if you've priced an airline ticket to go to Washington, D.C. It's quite expensive, so you're out quite a bit of money. So we want to narrow that down as tight as possible. That's what we're kind of reading those numbers and hoping we can get who's exactly going to nationals after this here weekend.
And the bottom line is, the well is only so deep. There's only so much money. Even though we would like to do this for all the kids, somebody at some point in time has to say, okay, we've only got this much money. We can't do any more. We have to understand that. We can't just pull money out of the air like the federal government does and print it. Okay. So keep that in the back of your mind all the time, that we're looking at a balanced budget, money coming in, money going out. That's what this gentleman is trying to massage, all those numbers. But that money going out cannot exceed that money coming in anytime.
I think that really we just want the money going out to be going to the correct place, and not at the end of the year have departments coming back to us going, hey, we've got to spend this money. And they're spending it just because it has to be spent, compared to having kids that were successful or departments that are successful having to go, okay, what can we give up to make sure that we can still do this? You know what I'm saying? So, on top of all that, we need a balanced budget, and we need staff raises, and we need all new buses. So, it's not, you do not have an easy job. The district does not have an easy job doing this, but, I think our concerns are more or less just with you, and going along and supporting you to make sure that we're doing this properly.
You just want to be fair to everybody. Oh.
Well, that's the budgeting process. Sometimes we have to look at being conservative, and maybe whether it be athletics or CTE or whatever it is, we need to look at being a little more conservative and make that. And sometimes you maybe don't get as much as you want, because we have to plan for, hey, we knew airline prices were going up a long time ago. This is conflict has been, so that's part of the budgeting process. Do you really need all that? Does every coach need a full wardrobe for every sport?
Can I ask a question on how budget is spent? So, like, let's say, just because we're on TSA, not to kick Miss Buck, but we're on TSA. Okay, we'll just continue with that. So let's say Miss Buck gets a budget, right? And she has planned for whatever, but that she gets to spend her budget how she wants to, right? Because it's her budget and she's planned for it and she said she spent it. So what if we get to the end of the year, but she spent her budget and there's really no money left over, right? Do those kids, like, where's the checks and balances for a campus administrator spending their budget, right, as they want, but like there being some type of purse strings to where the district is really overseeing that, to where we don't have a principal who's coming and going, you know what, I'm taking all my staff to lunch, or I'm buying them whatever, and there's really no other money left over. Like, how are those funds, or how do we as a district kind of manage giving them the ability to essentially run their business, right, because that's what their campus is, but also making sure that we're being good stewards of what that budget is, so that we don't come to the end of the year and we're like, well, sorry, you spent your budget, and now we have to tell kids no.
That describes at my point in the purchasing queue. Sometimes it is not hard, because you want to give campus and departments authority to spend how they, you want to trust that they're spending how they need, but then also having some sort of oversight in the zoomed out picture is, do we need to buy this before the close of budget? Is this really necessary? One of the things that I've been trying to not fight, but instill in campuses and departments since I've been here is it's not burn your budget. I've heard that term a lot, and you know, you may have a funded line code that has $1,000 in it, and all of a sudden I need all this stuff before purchasing. Maybe this teacher just never, maybe they do need it at the end of the year. Could you categorize that as burn your budget style expenditures? Could. Maybe that teacher just never hit her budget that year and she doesn't, or he or they needed that budget. But I do try to, every time we have a business meeting, I send out a purchasing email once a month, and it is, remember, it's not burn your budget, it is, spend effectively, because we would like to see purchasing, start at the beginning of the year, kind of go up, and then taper off towards purchasing. We don't really want to see this, shoot up right at the end, because then that means we're just eating to eat at the buffet. If you're full, if you've got the stuff that you need, spend the money on stuff that's effective. That's important to us. That's what I try to instill. But then you also have the authority of a campus principal department head to, I don't want to babysit you and say, do you really need this? And so it's a fine line to walk. I have seen purchasing, I've seen every purchase order come through this district for the last 2.5 years. And so there's not a lot of exorbitant purchases. Is there stuff towards the end of purchasing that you could kick back because it very much looks like burn your budget? Yeah, but it's also I'm not on the campus, maybe it is a true need. And so if it's egregious, yes, I do say something, but typically it's our purchasing queue is pretty tame as far as what people are requesting.
And so you summed up my original question perfectly. Is just if somebody comes to us at the end of the year and asks for us to make a budget amendment, the question is why. So Ms. Buck said, I plan for 45 kids to go to state and nationals. We set aside $50,000, blah, blah, blah. I'm having to come to you and ask for an additional 15 not because I didn't budget, but because airline tickets doubled. That's an explanation that we go, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That was something out of our control as opposed, but my question was, before whoever that principal was or that department person made the budget, and when they come back at the end of the year, we go, well, why didn't you budget better? That's my question. If the district took over that post-secondary budget part, and it can't, whoever that administrator is doesn't have the ability to budget that anymore, that was my question. No longer is it because Ms. Buck failed to budget correctly. The district took over that budgeting, so it's not. That was my original question starting all this 30 minutes ago, so 45 minutes ago.
Real quick question, sorry. But with you saying that, you get input from the campus administrators before you budget that amount. You don't just go by, I think we got 10 kids that are going to go to nationals. You don't just do that. You get with them and y'all collaborate.
So this is the first year, if we're talking post-district, right?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
That's what we're on.
So yeah, I figured that. I just want to make sure. So if we're talking post-district, TSA is an expensive, it's a high percentage of that post-district funding. And so going into this year, I didn't set the amount and I didn't do the calculations on it, but we figured 75 was enough, or at least it was set aside that 75 would be enough to cover post-district TSA and then anybody else that contributed to it. It is a very high expenditure. Like this year, I don't know if it was looked into that TSA is going to Washington, D.C., and so I don't think that was looked into. So like this year, I was talking to Brooke and I was like, well, where's TSA next year? I think she said Grapevine. So we have post-district next year. We're still going to have post-district, but it's going to be a lot cheaper to send kids to Grapevine than it is to Washington, D.C. So that is, now that I have these data sets, some of these people don't post their national things. I'm trying to gather we know general numbers of kids that attend and go to that, but being able to at least look forward if they posted their conference for next year, and then we can try to anticipate. We're talking about something a year from now. Kids change, kids may not go, but at least now we can see a location and know that the big cost category out of post-district next year will be Texas-based. So that is savings.
So you collaborate wherever the money sits, whether it's But you're collaborating with the people, the subject matter experts on it.
I'm collaborating-
Because you don't have, I mean, all day long, that's not your thing. But it is theirs. They're watching that stuff. So you're collaborating. You budget X amount of dollars. It sits at the district level or it sits at the campus level, but it's in collaboration.
So what works is we have it in one bucket, and then as we get more requests, I'm like, hey, we need to do this. So then I pour that bucket out, make a bucket for this group, this core group, stuff like that. So as they come in, now we have data points, groups that are going to utilize it. And then I can actually work like this fall. Hey, Ms. Camacho, how many CTE kids are going to be going to this? Hey, how's TSA? We know TSA is a given, but once we opened up as post district, then all of a sudden it's just maybe groups that never went because it wasn't, we have the data now, and trying to build sense out of data a year from now is what I'm going to try to do. It does help that at the top level, the core expensive group for post district is Texas based next year. So we'll be able to build numbers and go off of that, but at least we have the data set now of groups that are coming in.
I just have it's more of a budgeting question, just curiosity. I know what happens in a business world, what I don't know what happens with this in a non-profit type place. The budget is $10 million for the year for everything the school district does, and that's planning on postage, all that stuff, and none of that happens. At the end of the year, we've only spent $9 million. What happens at $1 million? Did you roll over?
It goes back into fund balance.
So it's just part of
it goes into our savings account or our
because I know
fund
the
balance.
business world is profit,
Yeah.
but I was just curious.
We're
never asked.
Putting back into fund balance is good. We want to do that, but then also we want to make sure we're properly funding and making sure groups, we're not a business.
Well,
We don't want to have a bit. I hope this opens it up to where you're trying to hit this mark that is so tight to where yes, we're putting back into fund balance in some degree, but also not so much that we underfunded and said nobody can do this. So trying to hit that bullseye is, like you said, we're trying to, hit a very tiny margin, but then also make sure that people are funded properly.
Well, and it just, I asked that because it feels like at the end of the year, everybody, like you said, is burning their budget, is buying just because that money is there. And, they probably will use it the next year. They're looking at future stuff. But I didn't know if it was something like, for whatever weird reason, it went back to the state. Why are they having to spend that money? If you give them $10,000 for the year and they only spend $9,000, do they only get $9,000 the next year? And that's their fear. And so they're like, spend that money so we don't get cut.
There is a very common trope or not trope, but a common, whatever you want to call it, belief that if you don't spend down to the penny, it will be cut. And one of the big things that we've done, and that's why we've shifted it over to campus principals and secretaries funding their accounts, is because, if I'm going through budget and I'm building everybody's line code and we had $2,000 for an English teacher and they spent $1,000, I'm like, okay, yeah, you could conceivably say they don't need that $1,000. So by giving the money back to the campus principals to allocate, now they can allocate it on actual needs. There may be some times where, this teacher always just buys this. I'm like, okay, well then if they have fluff, adjust it on yourself because that there's fluff in their budget. Like, we want to have these, like we're talking about the margin putting back into fund balance. We want those line codes of supply counts to have that margin too, to where it's not overfunded. Obviously, we want to make sure a teacher or campus or department has what they need to do what they want. But also if they're putting $500 back into fund balance and they're just going to burn it real quick, we wanted the campus principals and secretaries to make sure their budget is trimmed based on what they need. And so we don't want to underfund somebody, but that's, trying to stop the burn your budget. If people burn their budget at the campus level, then that's why we give it to them to allocate based on that.
Yeah, hurry up, please.
Okay. Yeah. We don't have property values, so this is just looking from a mile away. I just wanted to have something up there. I know you all are not huge function people, but this is, payroll by function is broke out in kind of what we're looking at as far as allocation. Everything I'm showing is we're pretty much going to be flat. We'll see it on the next one. At least on the early revenue estimation for the state funding, we can look at our ADA. So in the 4-6 weeks, we're looking at an average of 2,033 ADA. Fall snapshot was 2,066. And then we're starting to trend upward this year. So we're looking at 2,050 ADA. So we should be falling at the end of the year somewhere in between these two, which is going to put us, we're trending away from 2,033 ADA. I don't know if we're going to hit 2050, but you can see at least as far as the state school fund revenue, we're somewhere in there. So we're basically looking about being about flat compared to last year. So if ADA improves and that average comes up, but essentially it's almost about the same from last year, and we've had stuff go up. So that is trying to make that balance. As far as future looks, these are magic crystal ball numbers. I played with our template to put numbers in there. This is the demographer report. So if we look at a standard for next year, they projected that we were going to have 2,270 students. I'm projecting about 2,191 students going into next year. So that's about a 3% reduction in what the demographer. So if we apply a 3% reduction across what they put in there, that's kind of what we're looking at estimated enrollment. That could change. We could have the population bounce go up, and then it could go up. So I mean, we're just trying to look at numbers in the future. Our ADA gain, if it does go up, we are looking at slowly ticking up as this goes along. We went for a bond, we're building a new school. This growth will be happening at some point, but I'm ready to see it start to tick back up. I'm ready to see that. So if we're looking at a refined ADA, this is how we get funded from our state. We're looking at, there really wasn't a super decline between 22, 23, 23, 24. We're looking at 1, which is, that's flat. But we are in our 24, 25. We ended up 2,076 ADA. When I did this slide, we were at 2,032. The 5th 6 weeks was showing us about 2050 ADA. And so if that's going to average out, we're probably looking at about 2040. So we'll be down about 36 kids. It looks about 30 kids a year since 24, 25, 25, 26. So we get funded on that. Even if enrollment's going off, we get funded on ADA. So we are looking at at least our second year of about a 30 kid decline. Now, it's not huge, crazy numbers, but it does add up. It does add up. And so that's why we're talking about the budget recalibration and making sure that that big entire pie chart we have thought and processes going into whether it's payroll or supplies. Here's our average ADA throughout the year. Blues 2023, 24, 25, 26. So you can see it just slowly trending down. One of the hard parts is, as we're trying to project ADA throughout the year, first, this is the 6 weeks reporting period. We are showing an upward trend. I don't anticipate it being like 2023 where it's going to fall back down. Hopefully this is returning back to some of those 23 style levels. But it is just showing you how sometimes when you're trying to build the budget and you've got a declining ADA and you've got these upswing, trying to see where this last little tick's going to go, is it going to bring the average up for the rest of it? So that's just kind of what we're tracking on that side as far as ADA. Moving on to our March enrollment. So we've got our March enrollment right here. We're going to shift it and then move everyone down. So you've got kindergarten's going to be first grade is going to be second grade. This is how we go and build our campus allocations and student numbers. I've included our demographer report. You can see where, obviously this is stuff that was a given on the demographer's report. But you can see on the early numbers these are kids that were coming in after the demographer's report's made. So, Mr. Gatewood and I were talking, there's just sometimes less people having kids sometimes. Maybe not seeing how I walk my dog a lot around my neighborhood and see a for sale sign go up. Next time I'm walking them, it's gone in a couple days. Starting to see those signs stay a little bit longer, so that will change at some point. People will start moving here, but it's just waiting for that uptick to come in. These are going to be our projected campus totals for next year. So we're looking at 2231 this year as far as our enrollment. This number does change depending on when it is. But once you shift the grade levels and the senior class comes out, this is about what we're looking for next year. So we're looking at being about 10 kids down. That could be different on the kindergarten level. we have pre-K kids, but then you have some people that just show up for kindergarten, have never done into pre-K. Elementary is going to be down about 35. VMS is going to be down about 19, and then the big 8th grade class is going to be moving to the high school. So we're going to see about 18 coming up. These are our projected campus budgets. The way we do this is we, part of the recalibration process is we determined a per student amount based on what we had allocated and remove some of the extra, not fluff in their budget, but, you know, bilingual funds were included in the campus fund. So one of the things we did in 24-25 was really hammer down what these campus budgets were based on what they needed at the campus. So taking bilingual funds, we didn't take it away from the campus, but we just created a category for Ms. Roden to say, you know, here's your, you know, it's still being allocated to that, but the person who's over that particular spending category was in control of it. That allowed us to kind of establish a standard rate to fund these campuses based on the number of kids. So as kids go down, kids go up. That is what we're looking at, projected budgets for the campuses. There is just a certain amount that primary, even though they're down, there's just a certain amount in that funding that they need to, you know, operate their campus.
Can I ask a question about the upcoming, we talked about Head Start, right? Do those kids factor into our ADA, or is that a totally separate program? Are we looking to have additional kids in that program? How does that look for our next school year?
Right now, ma'am, that program's on hold because the MOU is not in our favor. And that's something to cover with you guys. The MOU is written all towards their favor. They have a caveat to we have to maintain the sticking point for me. They have a partner MOU to where we have to have 40 kids enrolled in that program. But if we don't have 40 kids enrolled in that program, we still have to maintain the staff here, and they take those kids to a different city. Like for instance here, if the closest city we don't have 40 kids, so if we have 35, they'll take those 35 kids and they'll take them down to, say, the next nearest Head Start, which would be Cleburne. And that is a sticking point in our MOU. But if those kids were in it, would count towards our ADA.
The other thing is, part of this budget workshop is just letting y'all know what's going on outside of just campus style budgets. Our SPED growth has really grown this school year. We've gone from 277 to 330. That's about a 16% growth in SPED students. We've got 50 in referral and waiting for evals and ARD. Just in general, the increase in SPED students leads to an increase in cost categories, whether it's therapy, bilingual evaluations, or testing materials and assessments. So that's just more just keeping y'all aware of as a board what is going on the SPED side and how we're trying to get ahead of that and make sure it's properly funded and funded effectively. And so, but yeah, we're up 53 kids. So that's it's not the same comparison, but if we had a sport group that had 5 kids in it and all of a sudden 53 kids, it is a cost category. So that is part of what we're going for. Some of the SPED stipend changes we're trying to implement. This is a stipend that we do have currently, the life skills. We're trying to open it up to behavior aids. That way it's going to give us more opportunity for employee retention, especially at that position. How many? There's 3 behavior aids, so it wouldn't have a huge financial impact, and hopefully would allow us to retain more SPED staff. The new stipend that we're proposing will be an adaptive PE stipend. That's going to be for one of our physical education coaches. To get this stipend, it would involve going to different campuses and being able to provide that adaptive PE for students that do need that service. It would just be a 1 stipend on that one.
How many kids are we looking for that to impact under the adaptive PE?
It's based on an evaluation. We would complete an adaptive PE evaluation. Generally, that service is provided to various students based on either a physical need, if a student's confined to a wheelchair, how would they actively participate in PE, or cognitive delays to where they don't understand concepts that are taught in PE. So there may be a modified activity if the student can't participate. So this is an area we want to grow because it is a related service, and we just believe that we could improve those services because it is a required service. Right now, our numbers, we don't have any students that are under adaptive PE, but we potentially have several that would benefit from that.
So like ballpark, like just kind of off the top of your head, knowing kind of our student demographic, right? What would you think would be like?
Anywhere probably from 5 to 10 students.
And is that across all 4 campuses or just
Yes.
all 4 campuses?
Yes.
And would the person who's responsible for adaptive PE, would they be like a current employee, or what are like the criteria that goes into being like an adaptive PE? Is it an aide? Is it a teacher? Like what all goes in? Like what would be their? I can't imagine us hiring somebody for a primary function for 5 to 10 kids. So what would be their primary function
Are they certified?
outside of those 5 to 10 kids?
Are they certified for adaptive PE?
Yes. So adaptive PE requires a person to oversee that. It requires certification. So the requirements are you must be certified in physical education. And number 2, you take the test because with adaptive PE it requires an evaluation. So there would be a little bit of training for that person to work together with our department in completing an adaptive PE evaluation. Then we create a goal. And generally what happens is who oversees that adaptive PE doesn't have to necessarily provide the direct instruction. They might or they might not, or they work in consult with the campus person designated for physical education.
So do we already have a person?
We do not have a designated person.
So, and maybe you answered it and I just didn't
We're-
get the answer, but I think Kirby had asked
We're not creating a new position.
what the person,
A position. This would be something supplemental to someone in district willing to take on those additional responsibilities.
Okay, I have a question. So you're
okay,
telling me.
hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
So we already have the person here. They have another position already. This would be in addition to what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be the intent.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little concerned. Out of all 4 districts, we have not had any related services where we've offered adapted PE to any of these children in all of these years.
We currently do not have anyone served. In the past, we've had certain individuals that were certified in that area. Since my time coming here in year 2, there were no students last year, but we potentially see the need, and so we want to be prepared for that, because if we don't have someone locally that can provide those services and oversee those services would have to be contracted out. And that's where costs are double and triple for a district once you start contracted services. So what we're hoping to do is move under our department, move a lot of those contracted services under employment. And this is one of those ways that we could be fiscally responsible. It would be an additional responsibility for one of our PE teachers. If not, then we would contract that out.
So they would, if I'm understanding what you said a minute ago, so this person would could oversee it or actually do it. So they would oversee it if it was a existing PE teacher, they've got their certification, they would oversee possibly an aide who's doing this?
Possibly.
And then the aide would fall under the $1,200?
Possibly, yes, because some of those students receiving, potentially receiving
Do
adaptive
you mind
PE.
hopping up to the microphone? I just want people at home to be able to hear kind of what you're saying, because I think this is, because it's new and great, so.
So potentially someone providing those services for adaptive PE could be someone from the life skills classroom, because a lot of those students that potentially could benefit from it are in a life skills situation because of cognitive disabilities. It also would ensure any student, not necessarily even under special education, but we have like 504 students who are in wheelchairs, and they could provide the services or at least provide some consult for the PE teachers for those students so that they have access to physical education.
So I think we definitely need this. I'm just trying to, I think, understand.
Yes.
So we would have an existing PE teacher who would get the certification for this. Now, they would actually be the one working with the student?
Yes.
Or they would oversee it and get the stipend, and somebody else would be working with the student?
Potentially either or. In special education, we have 2 types of services. One is direct, meaning that person directly provides the service, or it could be indirect. So some of the direct and indirect services are like occupational therapy, physical therapy, and also it could be adaptive PE as well. Does it make sense?
These are positions that we currently do have. We're just putting them on the actual compensation plan. They've either been a teacher so it's just, if y'all hadn't seen that, I didn't want y'all to be shocked that, are we adding, these are people that we currently employ. We're just getting them on the actual pay scale in these roles so we can actually establish those.
Can I ask a question about where that comes out of? So since we're on budget, that comes out of SPED budget, or does that come out, or does it go to like a normal stipends list where they're all,
These,
the SPED stipend changes, the life skills and the adaptive PE?
so that would be funded on the payroll side. And so that would go into our payroll calculations. When we're calculating payroll, if we have X amount of stipend, this is just zooming out. If we have X amount of stipends, we're making sure that we're allocating, funding blank stipends because this is how many we're going to use. Then we have that payroll side. So it would come from the payroll side coded to SPED.
And so the new stipend changes, does that come to us for approval?
Yeah, it'll be part of the compensation plan. It'll be on that, like we have this is our stipend list, do we approve it? This is our compensation plan, do you approve it? I'm just giving you a heads up on when you see it and giving you the backstory of why it's going to be on there.
And I just have questions around like how we came up to the 3,000. Are there other campuses in this area that already offer adaptive PE?
That's about, if I remember discussing with Kelly, that's about the local rate of what we do for or not what we do, but would be the local stipend amount based on typically what we do if we're trying to bring something like that on. We go to other school districts, like we may look at Ferris ISD, we may look at other districts that have very similar population styles and demographics and see what they're offering on their compensation plan, and that's where we build it from there.
And their compensation plan per the kids that we're servicing, right? So if we're talking about Ferris ISD, who has a larger enrollment than we do, if we're talking about 3,000, that's what Ferris is offering for the same amount of kids. I'm just looking at like cost breakdown, something $3,000, 10 kids, that's $300 a kid, right? Like that's just kind of how I logistically, or even if it's 5 kids, it's definitely more than that. But I think what I'm trying to say is the $3,000 for the adaptive PE, I love that concept. But when we're talking about direct or indirect, I would hate to see us have a current PE teacher where we have certified, they're getting the $3,000 stipend, and then they're telling, I'm certified at $3,000, but I'm telling Tasha to go do all the work. Right, it's like trying to understand that money and how we're putting it to work on that. We're saying the adaptive PE could be direct or indirect. I feel like that is a little loose on how we're managing that, just based off of the cost, right?
And I guess that's where my frustration is too, because I've never been anywhere or I've looked at any district where the adaptive PE is done indirect, where it's not done by the person that is certified. Personally, I have 7 kids out of my own classroom that get APE, and none of us do that. So it is a direct service. So to have, like Kirby says, now I'm certified, but Kirby, you go do the work, and I'm still going to get paid for it. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I love the concept. Like the life skills aid, like I love the concept. I just want to make sure that when we're building out the framework, that it's one of those where we don't have, somebody that we're paying $3,000 for that we're just they went through the certification, but they're just indirectly telling somebody else how to do it, especially if that's another aide who doesn't get the stipend, but they're performing the services, just to seeing how that framework is built out.
We did put the aide position in there a while back ago, was because of the amount of changes, and we did do that. Now, I'm not saying behavioral aides do not get that, because believe me, they get hurt on a daily basis also. But that's what the life skills was to get them a higher pay, because they are having to do the changes, the bathrooms, the feedings, all of that.
And I love the adaptive PE, and just I'm looking at the dollar amount per the kid, right, versus the life skills behavior aid per the kids, right? Just making sure that adaptive PE requires a certification. We're looking at 5 to 10 kids, but we have a life skills behavior aid who might have 7 kids full time, right? But we're only paying them $1,200. I'm just looking at like the cost versus the reward, making sure that we're being, because I mean, adaptive PE, absolutely, that's a service, but a life skills behavior aid making $1,200, having significant more, right?
You said this is a stipend going to how many people? 100%. So there's going to be one adaptive PE stipend given to, currently, who would that go to?
That hasn't been determined.
A current PE, somebody we currently have that will get certified.
like in Mansfield, they have adaptive PE person, a position.
Correct.
That travels all throughout the district.
Correct.
That goes to different campuses, so every period of every day, they have a place they'll go with, now, much busier district, so I'm just trying to figure out who that would go to and how we have a blind student at the middle school, we have 3 or 4 kids at the elementary, you got some at the primary, you got maybe at the high school. How are we gonna determine where they go, and if it's only one stipend given to one person, and it goes to a middle school PE teacher, and they only have that blind student once a day, that's where I'm mixed up on.
Yeah, I think she said that it goes like 5 to 10 kids. It would be over all campuses, right? So it's somebody we currently have certified. And correct me if I'm misunderstanding this. We could have like 5 to 10 kids that that person would be responsible.
So let's just say the middle school PE teacher gets the stipend. They would then travel throughout the district to other campuses.
That's how I understand.
And then how does Ms. Buck cover
the other PE classes?
one of her PE classes as so that, like, to me, that's a position. That's not a stipend. That's a position. That's a person that goes around every period of every day to all around. If you give it to the high school PE teacher, then while that high school PE teacher is going to all the other places of the district, who covers the high school PE class? I mean, as an old principal, I have a teacher covering that. If you take my teacher and send them to go do something else, then I've got to cover that. So now I have an aide making a quarter as much as the teacher who's covering the PE class.
And I guess I do have a question. Before we decide that we want to pay this $3,000 adaptive PE to one person, we currently have 0 students enrolled in that group. How much is contracted if we were to contract, say, with one kid? Or you're saying that we possibly could have 10 next year. How did it go from 0 right now to 10 next year? And then what's the cost benefit of, because I'm with Randall here, where we're gonna take someone out of a classroom and now we're gonna have to find someone to cover that classroom where we might not have that person to cover, where we all know that we are short on subs. So it's not like it's somebody that's gonna be able to do that. And an adaptive PE setting is normally between 20 and 25 minutes per child per week that they would have to do. So if there's 10, you've got 20 minutes plus you've got travel time, which our travel time is not very much, but you still have to account for that. So I guess that's, I'm also with,
Well, with only
that.
having 25 or 30 minutes required, that travel time for us would be.
Right,
They
that's
would
what I'm
have-
saying.
Yeah.
But you still have to account.
I just don't understand how we can get away with a stipend and not a position.
Well, I think the intent is to be fiscally responsible. So, for example, not having any students currently participating in adaptive PE, you're looking at growing a service, and this is where we want to grow a service. Now, there are so many variables here because there were several questions that came, but as you were asking these questions, I was thinking about all the variables. Number one, adaptive PE doesn't necessarily have to be direct instruction every single day. It can be that a person is overseeing it, going in, providing direct one time a week, paraprofessionals providing, it's almost like inclusion support, where you have a teacher overseeing a paraprofessional to provide those services for a student. So the reason why that you would give this stipend is, number one, the person has to get the certification and take the test. Number two, they have to write an evaluation that has to be reviewed in the ARD committee. Number three, they have to develop IEP goals. Number four, they have to monitor those goals over the school year. So that is why the adaptive PE person would get a $3,000 stipend. And if you're talking about equity here, there are extra responsibilities and those things that I just articulated. So I think that where we're thinking is this would require a person off of their responsibilities on a daily basis. It may not necessarily look like that. It may be some consult. It may be one time a week. And also you're going to have some students that are working, they're in classrooms. So when they go to PE, they're going to PE as a class, so that there could be several students benefiting from the adapted instruction. at the same time.
And I don't think, I'm not questioning at all the need for the stipend. I think I'm actually on the other side of it. I think you need more. I think it's a position. So my question is for you, if, let's say whatever, a middle school PE teacher gets that stipend, who's gonna cover for that middle school PE teacher during middle school classes when that teacher is out at other campuses doing other responsibilities?
And that would
And
be,
is the special ed department gonna pay to cover, cause now they're gonna have to hire an aide to cover for that PE teacher while that PE teacher's gone. So either way, we're adding a position. $3,000 stipend may be cost effective, but at the middle school, they're gonna have to add an FTE aide to cover for that PE teacher, or the district's gonna have to cover an FTE to cover while that.
Or maybe that's just presumptive of us to assume it's a PE teacher, right? Maybe that's just presumptive.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
they have to have that certification.
Yeah, it has to be. They have to be PE certified. But yeah, so whoever that person is, as opposed to the district adding an FTE that says this person is the adaptive PE. I know we're gonna walk before we run, I guess is what you're saying. So, but I just want to make sure as administrator, when you call and say this is the person on my campus who gets this stipend and is going to be required to do these hours somewhere else, who's going to cover their responsibilities on my campus while they're gone?
Actually, Mr. Buck, I have experience with this here. What I utilized as a high school principal, the person that did it was my head volleyball coach, because our head volleyball coach, all she did was coach volleyball. She was the person that was available just to go she went from campus to campus. Now, there's one thing I do have to ask. We got to make sure if we're doing it that way, that we build in adaptive PE equipment that's already positioned at those particular campuses, because you can't expect that person to travel with that. I used our volleyball coach because her schedule was free, so it's maybe to use, like for instance here, I don't want to put the guy's name out there. You do have some individuals that do coach whose schedule's very flexible with that certification. And that was the person that I utilized over at Red Oak, because she just had to give her up, and she traveled from campus to
And
campus.
the district the size of Red Oak or
Yes, sir.
Waxahachie, where we have positions who don't have really teaching responsibilities, they have, but here we don't. Our volleyball, for instance, our volleyball coach teaches the full load. So if we do have somebody, let's say, I'm gonna throw titles out there: head football coach, athletic director, other people who don't teach classes. Maybe if that's a plan, then y'all just say, hey, we have a plan. Then we have that. I just want to make sure we don't put our principals in a position to where, hey, man, we got this adaptive PE person, and the principal's like, well, who's going to cover their responsibilities while they're gone? If you have a plan, then I'll say let's do the stipend before we hire a position. But so y'all are telling me y'all have a plan.
Yes, sir. We'll not put a campus principal in a position where a principal has to cover that particular class. Yes, sir.
The fact that we have no students now that would need this, where does the number come from that we might have next year?
That's based on my knowledge of our current students and those that are in life skills classrooms who do struggle to participate in
So
physical education.
We do have kids now that would be if we did the program.
Does VI qualify?
Like we're not hoping kids come in that need it. We have kids here that.
So yes, visual impairment would be included under that. Some students, depending on their schedule of services, some students, if they're not participating in PE, which that does happen, there are some grade levels where they are not actively engaged in PE. That would be the exception, but yes, that could be potentially for a blind student, a student in a wheelchair, student with cognitive delays.
Well, the reason I say that is because I don't want it to, we jump on this and add this money to somebody, and then there's no one for them to
As a way to bump their salary?
Yeah, there's no way to take
No,
care of.
we
There's nothing for them to
anticipate
do.
this as a need, and also, we are required legally, to provide related services, and this would be a related service.
Is there a way to caveat that if we do add this and the service isn't needed, I don't want to spend the money on something that we're not, utilizing. You know,
We
no kids that
anticipate
use
this will be used.
Well, I get the anticipation, and I appreciate that because I love being proactive rather than reactive. But on the other end of that is anticipation is just that we're predicting the future, and it doesn't work.
The amount of kids like in our last, like I can tell you right now, I know of like 2 or 3 kids who are wheelchair bound just right now, or.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Do we have kids now that
Yeah,
as soon as it starts, they will start getting that
Well,
usage?
but
When
that's,
when you name this person,
and that's my question. They haven't been given the adaptive PE on their IEPs now, so we don't have them in a classroom for that. That's my question is, instead of, $3,000 is a lot cheaper than if we were to service it out, if we were to contract it out. But until we have a number to pay for the 3,000, I would like to see what the contracted services would be, since we have 0 right now. But you're saying we could have 5, maybe 10, but we don't have it
What's the
right
break even?
now. Yeah, like we don't
What's
have
our
it right
break even
now.
point?
Because the teacher's gonna have to go get certified, so that's at least a $200 certification. Who's gonna pay for that? They've got to go and get their own hours in that, and then they're gonna get the
you're telling me we're gonna get an adaptive PE person for $3,200?
I'm not saying that, but we have 0 students in the program right now.
I can think of
But-
2 right now that would qualify just at the preschool.
But
Yeah,
the thing
so
about
that's
it
what
is
I'm
they've
saying.
had the evaluations. So you're saying that as our SPED director, we have not done any of the APE evaluations and all of the evals that you have done.
There are currently no students being served under adaptive PE at this time.
'Cause
But
we don't
should
have
they
the
be?
service.
But have they had the
There are students
evaluation?
that could potentially benefit, and that would be based on a full evaluation. So for me to say, everything is based, in our related services is based on an evaluation.
But, so we
Legally,
we
you
haven't
probably just need to stay with
so we haven't done the evaluations to know.
Would we essentially do evaluations first and then, or do we have to have the like staff to do the evaluations? What comes first typically?
But if you do the evaluation, then once the evaluation is complete, the next day, we provide services. This person, when they get this certification, they start, then they go back and look at all the case files, and correct me if I'm wrong, and they may reevaluate. And when they reevaluate and we come up with 6 kids who qualify, now we have a person that can provide services, and services will begin. Is that?
Those evaluations are reviewed in an art committee, just like any other evaluation is reviewed. So it could be potentially the evaluation is completed. Generally, within 30 days, we review evaluations once they are completed, 30 calendar days. And so from that point on, an art committee would determine the scope of services if the student qualifies.
Okay, I think for purposes of what this meeting is, which is a budget meeting, we have talked about this. I think we have other questions that would not really fall under budget. So I think if anybody,
Well, the recommendation was that we need this position.
we're not voting on it today. We're gonna go through stipends in more detail in May. So I think we can, yeah, we can hit that another.
I think we hit this slide. All right, so some other SPED increases. We're going to be looking at SLP, SLPA, and then psychologist stipend increases. We have not had a psychologist at Venus, I think, since before COVID. And so that's a very expensive contracted service. So I'm trying to retain local talent, get local talent, and not it's just like renting. It costs more to rent than it is to not own, but you understand the dynamic. It is more when you're contracting a service out. So this is kind of just like a breakdown of SLPA psychologist. These are local midpoint salaries with these proposed stipend changes. So you can see with the contracted SLPA, if we contract them versus local with the stipend increase, we're looking at saving $20,000 on an SLPA. With the psychologist, this would be a contract. I calculated these contracted amounts based on instructional days. And so if we hire a psychologist with the stipend even increasing, we're still looking at $32,000 savings versus contracted versus having somebody local. So just on those two positions, that would be almost $50,000 in contracted services.
So not to get into the dollar pieces and all that,
Mhm.
do we think we will find people that would come and do this? Because I know these are usually pretty hard positions to fill. You think?
Yes.
I'm not saying whether
we've
to
had
do
some applicants.
Okay.
So we have interviewed speech assistants. We've interviewed school psychologist interns, and also one of the things that we haven't interviewed is a speech pathologist. We anticipate a retirement this year from our lead speech pathologist, so that position will be posted. So that one is one that we are actively trying to recruit.
Okay, thank you.
But just giving you the breakdown on why we're proposing those stipend changes.
know that's always a hard position to try.
And we're, trying to,
Not related so much to budget as just
yeah.
if we could get somebody.
Yeah, especially for the amount that they're making versus the amount they would be making.
Exactly.
Continuing on stipends, Mr. Hoffman had brought up last budget workshop on the ESL, the VPS versus VES, VMS. The difference, even though it's labeled like that on the sheet, the VPS/VES is really ESL supplemental. That's what we have it in our system. And then the VMS VHS is for the LPAC chair. So we're going to be updating those names. It's still these amounts. A ESL primary elementary gets the same as a ESL supplemental at the high school and middle school. So it was just clarification on what those amounts were. It was communicated last time that the teachers get the bigger amount, but only 1 to 2 people get this, and then the vast majority of people who get ESL supplemental, it's the ESL supplemental, not broke down like that.
For my own knowledge, what is LPAC?
It is the Language Proficiency Assessment Committee.
Thank you.
This is our stipend data. This is our top allocated. This is the number of stipends that we do have. The top one is the ESL supplemental. We have 54 of those allocated. Phone at 600, SPED allocation, and then certified. So this is the number of stipends that we do have allocated.
I have a question on the phone stipends.
Mhm.
So this is this is just for special education phone stipends?
No, we have moved away from SPED, and now we're just getting into general stipends.
Okay, so 21 total sum of 12,000. When I looked at the budget, and I could be totally wrong, that dollar amount seems wildly different than what we were sent as far as phone stipends. I feel
It
like
should be 600.
let me look at my.
And is this for like our police officers?
This is for anybody that would be on call or typically, campus administration, maintenance. There's times where Ronnie calls me early in the morning, hey, I need to get a PO. Anybody that's trying to get something done.
Anybody who we expect to answer the phone
Mhm.
24/7.
Well, I expect you to answer your phone 24/7.
I don't get the stipend. I don't get all $600. I used to get $600, and I did answer the phone 24/7 on vacation, etc. But gladly, I don't accept that $600 anymore.
While I'm looking, what's that breakdown? Like, that's 21 people across the district. Who typically has one of those?
It's going to be admin, principals, maintenance. Good examples, IT, in case the network, goes down, something like that. So anything that is, you have your normal working hours, but if something goes wrong, hey, we need you to tackle this or do this, depending on what their role is. So
So we had a question come up earlier this year. All 21 of these people, their numbers are available to the district?
their phone numbers.
Because back when we put this in place years ago, the way it was explained to us, if you got the money, you were expected to be on call, and your phone, not that you had to answer on the first ring or anything, but you were expected, if you received this stipend, your number was listed, like, all 21 people, all the people in the district would have that number. So all these numbers are everyone has availability to them? No, not parents.
Mhm.
Other staff members.
Oh.
Personal phone number, not publicly listed, so a campus administrator would have all 21 of these phone numbers in case something happened.
Right, if they needed to get in touch with you or get in touch with HR.
Basically, at least these 21 people would all have all 20 other numbers to where they have,
Mhm.
whether it be a CFO, an HR, if you're getting a stipend, then that was back then. Now, things a lot have changed since
Mhm.
back then, but I just wanna make sure, not make sure, I wanna question whether or not that's still the procedure.
You know, we share contacts and stuff like that. And as far as the actual framework of here is the list, we can make sure that it's available. But if somebody is in a position of, I was walking my dog and Renee had a question on one of her people traveling, and I was like, yeah, give me a sec, let me send you that tax form. So that is, the
I mean,
people.
for you, you're stuck at Sam's,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the card got declined.
Yeah.
Gateway's not gonna be able to help.
Yeah.
You're gonna call Gateway.
Yeah.
Gateway's gonna call you. So there's things that.
Like,
It actually happened.
Yeah, no, it
It
happens.
has happened.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking from my experience as an administrator, there are times where, I mean, there's a flood.
Mhm.
But I need Ronnie's phone number. If Ronnie doesn't answer, I want Gateway's phone number. I may need your phone number because we're gonna have to contract with a company to come pump water out. There's gonna be,
Or
so
if
there's.
somebody didn't get paid, it's the beginning of the year, and we have a new employee that didn't get paid for whatever reason, and
Or
they
checks-
need to be able to get in touch
or
with
checks didn't
HR,
go out.
finance, or, right, I
Payroll
mean,
didn't go out.
yeah, it's when we had Citibank, not that it was a bad card company, but it was through the state procurement that there would just be times where it would get declined. It was a credit card that had a PIN number. Sometimes people would try to bypass it. If you bypassed it, it would lock it up. And it just got to the point to where my phone would be on the credit card sleeve that I give out. So,
I'm just going into next year, if you're on the phone stipend,
Yeah.
the expectation is your number is shared with a limited number of
Mhm.
people that need the number.
Yeah.
That could be your technology director, anybody
Yeah.
that-
And that's, so it's 12,000, it's like less than 600.
Mhm.
Less than 600 a year, right? That's annually
it's,
what we're
it's
allocating to
600
them.
a person that
Okay.
gets the stipend.
Okay.
Mhm. Here's our top total sum of stipends based on categories. And so this is just there's other amounts, but this is the top allocated amount. So our top one's bilingual. We have the campus chairs and ESL supplementals, but it's just the top amount that we spend per stipend. I have these up here as we're getting ready to put everything in the oven. Is there anything, like these are what we have on the list? I know in the past, when we bring it to you for approval, there's, well, what about and rightfully so. This is the opportunity to, if there's something that's been kicking around that this is going to be the primary and elementary school style base stipends.
Is there any changes from last year to this year, or are they the same?
If it had a slide, it was the sped ones. Those are increasing. So those are, I tried to isolate the ones that are increasing so that when you see it on there, you at least have background knowledge of what's going on. But these are still our core stipends that we have on the website.
so I have a question for Mr. Gatewood. On our stipends, because you've worked in other districts, are our stipends pretty in line with other, or do you see where we pay certain stipends that you've maybe never seen before, or we're not paying stipends that you see other districts pay?
Yes, ma'am. We do have some stipends that's jumps out at me a little bit, and I'll just put it out there to you. Department chairs, I'm used to seeing like $1,000. I've never seen $4,000, and that's okay if the board wants to pay the $4,000. That's just from my experience that I've seen there. That's just
Department, let me just ask.
yes, ma'am. Department chairs.
Department chair is like your department lead. That would be the person, like if you're in English, that person would go to them.
Yes,
Is that, okay.
Yes,
But
ma'am, that's
what are,
correct.
so can you tell me what they do?
That person is supposed to be in charge of the campus budget, running PLC department's budget, not campus department budgets, running PLC meetings, ordering supplies, those particular administrative duties for that particular department. Like say for instance, you're the science department chair. You're ensuring that the budget gets ran. You're ensuring a meeting for PLC. You're ensuring lesson plans that are being turned in on time. A lot of administrative duties that is occurring. I'm just used to seeing it is okay if the district wants to keep that budget, but I'm used to not seeing that amount for that particular budget.
Can I ask the difference between what's a campus department chair at the middle school versus a team lead for core subjects at the VPS and VES?
Actually, there is none, ma'am.
So is there a reason why that is not all one like, why it's not consistent across the board? Is there different work that goes into it? Is there I don't see one for the high school. I don't know does the high school have that at all?
Did. Used to be the department chair it was the same for a secondary department chair. When that was implemented, there was a distinct difference between a primary, what the expectations were from those of us that were administrators in our conversation. There was a distinct difference between what the primary and elementary department people were expected to do and what the high school and the secondary were expected to do. That was something we discussed as all administrators. That's been a few years ago when I was administrator. But we had a written, like that was my question, Mr. Haywood, do we have like a job description for those people who get these stipends that explain exactly why you're getting $4,000? It's don't whine to me about it's all the extra time outside of school you have to spend doing things like at home. They have to check lesson plans for their entire department every week or every couple days. If there's a substitute, that department chair is responsible for class coverage, making sure that substitute is up to date with, what's going on in that class, checking in on that class. That they're running PLCs. They're, like he said, budgets. But we had an actual job description for our department chairs that said these were the things that why you got $4,000 or a period off. So as an administrator, you got the option. You got $4,000. As a principal, you could give them $4,000, or you can give them another planning period to do all that stuff. But if you didn't give them a planning period, my expectation is after school hours, on your own time, you were going to do $4,000 worth of work in a year. Not unreasonable.
But why would the campus department chair be responsible for lesson plans or anything like finding a sub or making sure?
Not finding a sub, making sure the sub is like when the sub shows up in the morning, that department chair, one thing they would do is go to make sure that all the information was there. The teacher had left stuff to do, because that department chair should be in sync with everything that department is doing right now. Whereas the principal has the oversight naturally of that, but that department chair knows day to day everything that's going on, where they are in the lesson, where they are,
And how many of those do we have? Like, let's say campus department chair, how many department chairs do we have?
they have 4. Well, I would say I say the cores were maybe 5. I don't know. What do you know, Mr. Lanston?
And then can I ask one more question while we're on here? So I'm comparing campus to campus. I see middle school chair, but I don't see VHS chair. Does it come out of a different?
Let me get the actual number of chairs. I have it on a
Okay.
spreadsheet, but I have it broke down on my printed sheet a little bit differently. So you said the number of campus chairs?
Yeah, 'cause and also we're at team lead for.
I only say that because I think like the elective chairs don't get they don't get $4,000.
Electives get 1,000.
Yeah, so that's that was back in, I guess it's still I haven't read it, but
Well, and then they call them team leads at the primary and elementary. So just how many team leads do we have, and how many campus department chairs do we have?
Yeah, I can get you that.
And then, do we not have a department chair at the high school that's no longer?
I can get you that too. So some of this stuff is I'm presenting the numbers and the actual HR side of this person
got you.
gets this,
Yeah,
but I can
and-
definitely,
But that's why we're doing this meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, and then lastly, also, again, I see middle school cheer, but I don't see high school cheer on the stipends as well, because I know that we pay, I would assume we would pay both. I just don't know if
that
that's,
may be an athletic stipends.
but middle school cheer is on BMS. Why would it not be under athletic?
I did send you guys a actual breakdown of all the stipends. What Mr. Lanston's done here, what Lanny's done here, he's summarized it up. But I did send you guys an actual breakdown.
Why is middle school a department stipend and not?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's my question, because I see middle school under VMS base, but like she's pulling up athletic cheers under athletic stipend. Why are they
Which-
not under the same?
Which
Cheer.
which group on
So
what's the gray
VMS
box say so I can
Yeah, so if you go to VMS, you have middle school cheer, which is 2,000, second from bottom.
okay.
And then if you go to VHS, they don't have a cheer stipend here, but I think she found it on the athletic stipend instead.
And then I'll just throw one in there too.
And
if
so
you,
my question is, why is varsity and JV cheer under athletic, but middle school cheer is not? Same sport, just different, just
So-
questioning about budgets.
This general document is what's on the website, and so getting this cleaned up into where it's organized and it makes sense, because this general document where I pulled the stipends from HR, you come back to this was a confusion last year in that why are we paying VMS and VHS more than middle whenever the vast majority of people who get the supplemental is getting this, because in our system it's like this. So it could be that it's on the sheet like that, but then we just have cheer in the system. But making sure that this sheet where I took these data points is cleaned up and accurately presents what we're going for. Is
And then can I ask one last question
Mhm.
while I've got the mic? On band directors, so middle school has band and assistant, high school has band and assistant. Are those two different? Like middle school has a band director, high school has band director. It's not the same person, kind of double dipping both stipends.
to my knowledge, it should be two. If you're getting that as a director, you are a human being, like two
Okay.
separate human beings.
Okay.
Assigned to those two campuses.
Yes,
Okay.
not just like one person being I'm the director here and there. Like
Right. I feel like at some point in time we probably had floaters in that category.
Yeah.
We've grown our band program like in staff, so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't like.
yeah, no, that is pulling the stipend data. It is. Because like when we ran the assistant football coach stuff, I called Gover. I'm like, hey, how's this break out? And he's like, well, it depends on what the head coach is, because you may have outside linebackers. Depends on what they want as their so. On the football assistant coach, it's not labeled outside linebacker, but it is a standard rate depending on how the actual head coach wants that allocated to. I want to have a dedicated outside linebacker. I want to have a dedicated secondary guy. So it just kind of, so some of that stuff is trying to, if we put outside linebacker on there and he wants to have an outside linebacker, we can't technically give it to somebody who's out, so that's sometimes it's vague like that, but making sure it is cleaned up and you can digest this information in a normal way is very important, because like you can see with the ESL one, you could conceivably look at this and be like, well, I might as well be ESL at one of the, middle and high school, because I'll get $1,000 more when it was just a labeling error. So making sure it's cleaned up for that, we'll make sure.
And
So-
then I do have one question, sorry, but on here it does show, like, I'm just wanting to make sure that all of our life skills aides are actually getting the $1,200, because it shows that it is on the high school, but it does not show on any other campus that they are getting those stipends for life skills.
And then what are you looking at?
At your high school
let me see.
part, it says, it's the very last line item, says life skill aid, but then on your VMS, it does not show anything, and either does it does not show it on your VPS and VES either, that life
So-
skill aid gets anything.
Yeah, so let me see.
And I know you said there's 8, and I know we only have 2 or 3 at the high school, so I know there's other ones. I just want to make sure that it's on
So
their
maybe-
stipend list also.
Maybe for the next meeting, if just do a different spreadsheet of,
Okay.
I think they're all probably there and they're probably getting it.
Yeah.
It's just the way the spreadsheets are aligned that it looks like it's a bunch of,
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
to, kind of like what Donald said earlier, just want to make sure it's fair across the board and everybody knows what they're getting, because, it is different if you're a PE aide than you are if you are a life skills aide.
Yeah,
Or if you're
having this cleaned up, this was just, I could only pull what was on the website, so this is where it's starting. But having it cleaned up to where it does make sense. But typically, if it's a life skills aid, regardless of what, that they get that rate. So,
well, let me say, first of all, thank you for this information.
yes, sir.
Super long form. I love it. This is my great information. The pre-information we got from you, Mr. Gaywood, outstanding. So thank you for that. So questions on stipends. Number one, I would like to investigate a little bit further what junior high coaches make compared to our region. I think our junior high coaches, I think it's $1,750, isn't it? For 3 sports, and the amount of hours they spend. I don't know. I know our from back when I was a head coach at $3,000. I think so that totals raised $2,000. But I don't think our junior high coaching stipend has raised hardly at all. So, just respectfully, I don't expect us to pay what Mansfield pays, but really a Mansfield assistant, a junior high coach coaching 3 sports is spending the same amount of hours our guys are. So maybe just to look at possibly raising those junior high stipends a little bit. I'm not saying anything.
Well, there's a little difference in on though, because most of our junior high kids practice during school. High school practices after school.
No, our middle school practices after school.
Middle school girls practice before, middle school girls practice.
So a junior high coach, football practice after school, basketball practice after school, track practice after school. So those coaches are all year long or after school every day, whereas maybe a high school coach makes more money, but when football season's over, they may be off all of basketball season and don't have to coach again until baseball season. So, but they make more money than a junior high. So I just a consideration of raising that junior high coaches stipend. For Mr. Gatewood, so our head football coach gets $7,500. The same guy gets another $7,500 for being assistant athletic director, correct?
Let me see, double check it. Let me
So
go back.
$15,000 in stipends, and does that person teach classes?
Actually, typically, I know he does some inclusion classes. But that is correct on the amounts. We do have I sent you guys a spreadsheet. What I didn't put is names on there, because I can go back and put names on there. I didn't want to discuss
No,
names today. We do have a lot of double dipping.
I'm
with
just trying to think.
stipends.
They get. So you have an athletic director who gets a salary. Then, here recently in the last few years, we've named an assistant athletic director, and they get $7,500. And now that our athletic director is no longer our football coach, we've given a $7,500 stipend to our head football coach. Now, let's say I don't have a problem with any of those. What does a boys coordinator do? So if you have an athletic director and you have an assistant athletic director, but then you have a boys coordinator and a girls coordinator, what do they all do? Not offensive coordinators, athletic high school boys coordinator, athletic high school girls coordinator. Isn't that by definition an athletic director?
I will go and get an answer to that, Mr. Buck. That is, there's a lot of strange things going on with our stipends. Our stipend list is $600,000, and that is a great question. I am used to seeing a coordinator at the middle school level, not a high school level. I'm used to seeing a director.
And I think that
at the high
position
school
still
level.
exists at the middle school. So I just want to, I'm not looking at cutting anybody's salary this year, but maybe going forward for the next year of, hey, FYI, this is, but we've added an assistant athletic director in the last 5 years, and now we're paying a high school boys coordinator. So in essence, not saying any names, but the assistant athletic director and the athletic director and the head football coach, are any of those people also getting the athletic high school boys coordinators or girls coordinator?
No.
Say that again?
Because your girls coordinator is retiring this year.
Okay.
And your boys coordinator is,
So those are different people.
yes, they are different.
All right. I just like to, my question earlier was, does every stipend come with a job description?
Yes, sir, but there is some that double dips on there that we
And
need to
I'm
take a
not
look at.
even against double dipping if it's necessary, but I just want to make sure that our athletic director has a job description, our assistant athletic director just wasn't a way to bump up somebody's salary. They need a job description. Are both of those people required to be at every game? And if both of those people are required to be at every game because they're getting massive stipends for it, your principals don't get stipends for being at all those games, but they're required to be at all those games too. Your elementary principals are required to be at high school football games, but I've got a high school coordinator, a girls coordinator, an athletic director, and an assistant athletic director. That sounds to me like maybe that's enough for game duty right there. Why do we need all of our principals going to game? Just questions for you to.
Yes, sir. But and I'll explain a little bit. It seems to me like just putting things into context. Just looking back, these stipends have been out there for a long time. It seems like we have a history of saying, okay, in Venus, we don't pay this on a pay scale, so we'll just give stipends. That's what it appears to me. Now we pay well enough so we can start to unravel all these crazy stipends that we have out there. For a district our size, we do have over $600,000 in stipends going out, and it just looks that way to me. I want to recruit Coach Shaw out here. I know I can't pay Coach Shaw on the salary, so I'm going to tie some stipend to get Coach Shaw to come out here. That's what it just appears to me.
So that brings my question, then why don't we just put that in the pay? What's the point of having the stipend if we know that a coach is going to spend all this time and we're willing to give them an extra $6,000 stipend? Why don't we just raise the pay $6,000 and get rid of stipend?
Because you're a teacher first.
It's a scale, yeah, the teachers
They're a
are paid off
teacher
of a scale
first.
first.
Oh, okay.
So they have to, it's
They
based
have
off
to
of
get paid
years.
on the teacher scale.
Does that make
Who
sense?
sets that scale?
We do. So if all
That's
of
our
us
teacher
come in,
scale.
if I'm a 6-year teacher and you're a 6-year teacher, we make the same off of
Okay.
the pay scale, but I may coach and you may not coach. So I might get the $6,000 or $5,000 to coach,
Okay.
where you won't because you're not coaching. But because we're both 6-year teachers, we both come in at the 6-year pay scale.
But you can't just go to that person that's doing the extra duty and just raise their pay up? That $6,000? It
We
has
are
to
with
be
the
put
stipend.
separate?
You can't adjust the salary scale. That's a board decision, and that has to be adjusted for everybody.
Oh, so this was a way to adjust it without
You
needing
got it.
board approval?
You got
Oh,
it.
gotcha, okay.
Greg, you have a question?
Yeah, I actually would like to see names of what everybody's doing. Because these positions, as you say, first off, it's public information anyway. But if you've got the list of names, if we could put that with the position, it'd be easier for me to track than just have a position here. I mean, because we could have somebody, I don't know because I can't tell. For instance, you could be our superintendent, our athletic director, or principal. I mean, you could be getting all kinds of duties, that I have no clue who's what. I just know they're here. So I would like to see a name with that.
Are these all of the like the high school stipend? This list, this is all of the stipends that are going
Yes.
out to people right now?
This is what the information being presented is what we currently have on our stipend list, getting ready to update for next year. So that, yes, this is everything that could be available to somebody. Just if the amount's there, sometimes we may not allocate it if we don't have but sometimes it's easier to have that stipend on there just in case.
Is there not a stipend for the, like the FFA teachers?
No, they're on 226.
They get paid longer, so your regular teachers are on a 165, and
Okay.
then they get paid extra days to go and do their stuff that they do. Like their competitions and their stuff like that. That's already included in their salary. They don't get a stipend, it's included in their salary.
So we included it in that one,
Yes.
but not the other.
Well,
Okay.
no, they're getting
very
paid
confused.
they're getting paid
On a,
more days. They're
Yeah.
getting paid for 20 more days working a year than they do.
Okay, so that 20 days extra pay, does anybody look at whether or not that covers the hours and hours and hours that they spend when it's icy in Fort Worth and you can't drive up there and they've slept there for 3 days? You know, the hours they spend, just like all the other coaches and people do, but I just don't understand, we paid them more days to make their pay higher, but is that covering the same that, like we're trying to cover with these stipends? You know, again, I'm just trying to hit that
What
equality.
position are you talking about? I'm sorry.
Like
FFA,
that, like that. The
Do
particular
they
one I'm
get
thinking of is
they get a
that, is
stipend,
that.
right?
There's none.
There's not a
one listed.
CTE stipend or anything like that they get? So they just get the extra days?
Same as administrator.
Okay.
Yeah, but-
Administrators don't get paid to work, to go till midnight to a football game somewhere else when they have to do duty, but it's part of their 226 contract that the expectations are that you're gonna do this. If you take the job, you understand as a principal, you're gonna do this. If you're an FFA teacher, you also go get to work all those shows for 15 shows and
Then that's the problem. That's what we need to change. Because agreed that that's an expectation, but head coaches have expectation and everybody has these, we pay them more. why are we not paying those administrators
Well-
more? a
Well, we
stipend?
could, but I think in most
Or-
FFA, when we addressed this before, most FFA teachers would rather be on 226 contract than get a $4,000 stipend.
Because honestly, if you look at it and you break down their pay, and them having the extra days, it's probably more than the $3,000 stipend we would give them.
That ended up being my question was, has there been investigation into that to know whether or not we are paying them?
Well, because, okay, let's just,
For that time.
I'll throw Mr. Webb out there, you know, he's got the multiple years, 25, 26 years that he's been here, so his daily rate is so much higher than what his stipend would be, so it's cost effective for him to be on more days than it is for him to get a $3,000 stipend.
Well, it is also a state, that's a state.
Yes.
I mean, all FFA teachers in the state are on the same deal. You'd be hard pressed to find any that pay a stipend, so it's not, that's just the system, the way the system was set up. It's kind of like coaches of, why don't we just pay them 226 contracts? Well, somewhere along the way, you know, that's not the way they did it, so.
Would an example be kind of the same, because his job is FFA?
Yes.
The baseball coach's job is math. I'm just throwing that out there, math, and he's doing this extra thing. Now, if we were big enough to have just a baseball class and that's all that person did all the time, band. Well, band gets extra days and a stipend.
Are they on 226?
I don't think so. No, I think they're on
Sounds
a
like we need
regular.
stipend workshop.
From my back when I was here, they were on a regular contract and they got 10 extra days plus a stipend.
Well, and coaches get 10 extra days and a stipend.
And a stipend. But you could take away coaching.
Yes.
You wouldn't take away ag.
And
I don't know.
Another reason is, like a coach, we can hire and fire a coach based on two things. If they're not being adequate in the classroom, you can let them go because they're not a very good teacher. Or if they're not on the coaching field, the athletic director can non-renew them as a coach, and they can stay as a teacher.
They're on a dual
FFA
contract.
person is just one position, so you can't let an FFA teacher go because they're not doing their ag duties correctly, but keep them as an ag teacher. Those are two separate things, so they're on 226. So as a coach, if they're not coaching well and the athletic side wants to let them go, I can keep them as a teacher, but they lose their coaching stipend. But an FFA teacher is all tied to one thing.
Well,
That's their.
Well, I mean, they're ag, right? They're an ag teacher. FFA is
CTE, yes.
is it different? Is not what an ag teacher does. That's just who does it. You know.
Well, but you were asking about the FFA getting a stipend for doing FFA.
Well, I meant I guess I should have said the ag teachers that are doing the FFA because that is in addition to the ag because their job as a teacher, animal science stuff like that. The FFA is an additional thing. FFA is a extracurricular organization, not a teacher.
So what contract are they on?
Yeah, with our new teacher.
You're down contract. Yeah, okay.
Can I ask a question about athletic stipends? I'm sorry, unless.
No. I mean that was.
I don't wanna.
That's just one thing I didn't see FFA as a stipend on here, and I knew that was a secondary. That's a teacher teaching animal science or whatever. Then they do ag or the FFA, and that's a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of extra duties on them also.
I think if you ask an ag teacher if they would like to go to a teacher contract and get a $5,000 stipend for like a head baseball coach would, I think they would giggle and tell you that.
They're gonna go down the street.
Well, again, that was the question was
Because we're expecting.
has it been looked at?
Been done,
Yeah.
and it is more lucrative for them to be on a 226 than it would be for them to be on a.
So do we have other staff that are 226 and they get stipends? Do we have other staff on 226 and they get a stipend?
That'd be administrators, right?
No, administrators don't get stipends.
No, but I'm saying on 226s.
Yeah, he's asking, is there anybody else on a 226 and they get a stipend on top?
Yeah.
For something, for anything.
He can bring that. Is that
So that's,
I would just have to
yeah, that's,
run numbers on that.
That's what, something I'm interested in finding out.
And I have that list, and like I said, I forwarded it to you guys, but, I didn't put, let's still put names in it, you'll see.
Can I ask a question about athletic stipends? I don't want to, if you're done, yeah, I'm just next on board. Is there a reason why our athletic stipends are not consistent with like all head sports? So I see most head sports are 5,000, but then I look on tennis, golf, and cheerleading are all at 3,000 versus 5,000.
That, because used to be all tennis tournaments and stuff are on Saturdays, now all tennis tournaments and stuff and golf tournaments are during the day. So like they go to, all your tennis tournaments and your golf tournaments are during the school day. They may go over into the evening hours a little bit, but like a baseball coach, all games start at 6 or
So
7.
does cross country. Cross country always runs during the day in the mornings, and they rate
Cross country
5,000.
runs on Saturdays.
No, they run during the day. They
They
run
do
on
now?
Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Tuesdays and Fridays. Usually the same day as game day.
Yeah, you're right, man, but it's during the week.
Good question about consistency. And that was the reason
That's
back
just my
in the,
just the
back in
consistency
the day.
piece.
That was because they were taking school time to go do all their
Yeah.
events.
Because
And,
I mean, I've even tried to do. Well, maybe it's length of the season. Well, most of the seasons are pretty much the same. I mean, and I just saw the inconsistency in that column on those 3 positions.
Yeah, I can get with Donane and go over.
Yeah.
Make sure.
And then lastly, just the football, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and the assistant varsity. So offensive and defensive coordinator, because I heard you say like it'd be hard, to, like outside linebacker or whatever. So the offensive coordinator, are they also an assistant, or are they just getting the offensive coordinator and not the assistant?
Without having the sheet in front of me,
Okay.
if you're the offensive coordinator, then I would assume that you're just getting offensive coordinator, and then you'll have, then we get into the assistant being special teams, branching out from there. That would be. But yeah, if you're getting coordinator on one of those, I can
And
run the
that's
numbers and
1-to-1.
check.
One offensive coordinator,
Yeah,
one.
defense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should be. Yeah,
Okay.
I can run the numbers and check,
Yep,
but
thank you.
I would assume on that.
Can I ask, an athletic equipment manager?
So sometimes we do have stipends on here that are not allocated, and so, yeah, so that's yeah. So that's part of the cleanup process.
the athletic equipment. See, all stipends are designed to pay for after school hours. So you're getting a stipend because that's above and beyond what you're doing. So the equipment manager has time in the summer or other time that they have to prepare equipment for either the upcoming season or closing out the season where all the other coaches are relieved. The equipment manager stays after and has to either inventory equipment or, so I don't know if y'all were asking why that.
But yeah, I can find out if it's allocated, but sometimes there are stipends on here that aren't allocated and given to somebody just in case, somebody, we don't need that need, maybe it arises later in the year.
Like for instance, we have one that's titled Assistant Principal Academy Coordinator, which we don't, $2,000, we don't have an Assistant Principal Coordinator
would've been-
Academy. Yeah.
So, but getting the stuff that's, it's not crazy that we could need an athletic equipment manager at some point. So leaving that on there, but not allocating it is something we would do. But especially the one Mr. Gatewood brought up, that would be something we're removing because that's
They
just
have
not
an
something
academy
we.
to help train
It's
out
probably
the
grant
assistant
funded and we don't
principals.
need it
she
anymore.
went
So
every month.
Okay, so, and that was
They
my
met
next question. So the ones that
after,
say
before,
like
after school
blended
or-
learning manager, that are,
Yes.
so those are gonna come off.
yeah, they're going to come off because those were
were
tied to
grant funded.
grants. Why they were on the district stipend sheet, it was just tied to a grant.
Okay, and so all those, okay, got it.
Yeah, blended academy. Yeah, those are going to be coming off, and yeah, because they're tied to grants, so it's not on the official one.
So can I make the recommendation, like the things like the assistant principal academy coordinator was an outstanding thing, regardless of who gets the stipend. That was a great thing for all the APs to get together, only them, without any principals there, to talk about their jobs and how their jobs could become better. That was ended, but before we just axe that and take it off, I would just ask you to consider talking about leaving that program since the money's already budgeted.
So what did the coordinator do though? Because I feel like if my thought on that is, if I'm understanding it is, say we're all assistant principals and we're new, couldn't we all just kind of get together and decide to meet to kind of throw things at each other and things like that versus having to pay somebody $2,000 to say, hey, y'all are gonna meet on Monday?
Well, yeah, typically that person would pick a topic or maybe talk to them ahead of time on what topic they need help with, like if they're talking about evaluations or something like that, and they would spend an hour and a half once a month coaching them on that topic, like what did they have trouble with the last. Normally it's newer assistant principals that are just learning, that would, now, that, just now, it doesn't have to be.
I think it's great for people to
Yeah.
collaborate and talk. And
But it's normally somebody
amongst
who's
their
not an
peers.
assistant principal anymore who could help coach them on how to do that better, or what's, that's the way it was designed in the beginning, years ago when they designed it, but just a, recommend just a.
Yeah, no, all good. I didn't understand it completely.
Okay, so I think we've. Yeah, trying to hit the. Yeah, so that would be kind of the wrap up of district stipends. If that. This was just the SPED style stipends that we had, just showing the changes.
Ms. Peter, what does a 504 coordinator do?
Currently, that stipend is not assigned. Prior to me coming, it was assigned to someone in the special education department. So that has been open. I have tried to provide the training to the campuses for 504. And so, like this year, for example, with the elementary assistant principals being new to the district and new to processes, there was a lot of hands-on training that I did with the assistant principals on 504 referrals and paperwork and implementation. So that is not currently a stipend assigned to anyone at this time. No, this is an existing one, but it's a vacant one at this time.
I just didn't know, I know all the APs are responsible for 504, so I didn't know if that'd be great to get them a stipend for 504, because that is a beast, but I was making sure someone else wasn't getting a stipend, and then the APs were doing all the work for it.
No, sir, but we work together with the APs. I work together with APs on the 504, those students and coordinating those services. That's a good question. We have really grown this year. I'm very, very excited about our partnership with the Texas Workforce Commission. And so we are doing things on the high school campus this year that with training and life skills and them coming in and teaching coursework that we have not seen in the past. So I would say this is one of our glows this year. Our transition coordinator works together with the Workforce Commission, schedules meetings between campus administrators and the Texas Workforce and coordinating those services. Also, one of the things that she has done this past week is organizing with our high school students some day camps and getting permission slips and chaperoning for that. So there is a lot that she does do, and it is beyond the typical hours. She is the diagnostician for the high school, and so she has done a lot to improve our services and getting parents coordinated with outside resources. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes, ma'am. If I'm correct, that is required once a kid gets to high school, and that's when special ed students start to become part of the actual art process in attending, right?
It is required by the state that we have a transition designee, and she is that person, but she coordinates those services. So she's done a very good job, and I would love to give you guys more information when we do more of a comprehensive overview of special education, which is now required by law to give you guys an annual reporting. We can give you more information about that, so you can hear. She does not attend all 8th grade ARDs, but if that's something that we need to discuss, in the future, that is something we may consider.
For $5,000,
Transition services, yes. On the students' 13th, when they're 13 at their ARD committees, we are already starting to talk about transition services, and we're already indicating, pathways for endorsements for high school when they're 13.
I just want to make sure for $5,000 that we're properly properly doing the transition, but they're also still doing their diagnostician work.
Yes, yes.
You talk to most diagnosticians, they think they're over.
Yes,
they're over
and another thing that she is doing, she's coordinating all our crisis prevention intervention. There is no stipend attached to that. She went and got trained. She is a trainer now, and so we've saved money and resources that we haven't had to send folks to the Region Service Center because she has been providing that training on site. So that is something she is doing above and beyond that is not incorporated into a stipend.
While you're still up there, Special Olympics, I know we haven't competed in a few years. Do we have any? Did we do it? Oh. And it died for a little while. I'm glad to see we're back in.
It was a beautiful day, and it was a great time had by all. Where we have been this year with the Special Olympics, we had a bowling event that was in the fall. We had we participated with Burleson in their what was it called, Amber? BFF, a Friends Fest there. We want to extend next year maybe with some basketball. That's something we've talked with Mr. Gatewood about. And then we did the Waxahachie Special Olympics. So it does take coordinating. You're coordinating the volunteers that may go and assist the students in working with like with Waxahachie ISD and getting students registered, and so there are some organizational pieces to that, but we're trying to grow that program as well.
We used to host the Special Olympics basketball.
Yes, we did.
We were rather known for basketball tournament host, so it was. I'm glad to see the Special Olympics is back participating.
They did it clap out, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I felt like I needed to.
I do have a question for the slide before. Professional hourly pay for miscellaneous and paraprofessional hourly pay for miscellaneous, what would those be? And you don't have to give me that right now, just something that you can maybe tell me.
Where is it?
Right there. After a
Oh, okay.
Saturday school teacher.
Oh, gotcha. Let me find that.
Is a session, if you could let us know what a session is too, is that full day, half day?
That's the after school.
That's, yeah. No, I'm looking at the Saturday.
And so, just so I know I'm providing the correct information.
Saturday school teacher, the $100
That's
session.
normally all day.
Okay, that's fine.
It's normally all day.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to know.
And it's
It's 4 hours.
Yeah, it's 4 hours.
Can you repeat I just want to make sure I got all the
yes,
variables.
sir. It's the professional hourly pay for miscellaneous and the paraprofessional hourly pay for miscellaneous.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's coming up.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, I see community library worker. Okay, anyway, okay, I'm sorry.
It's on early budget estimates on like about 3 pages from now. I've already got it. Sorry.
So
On buses.
replacement plan for next
Give
year.
me I struggle with 90 grand. I want to know what kind of laptops we're buying, and this is for the bus department, right? Or is this for
No,
everybody?
this is just
Oh,
this
I
is-
tied it in with it. I'm thinking,
this is in general.
what laptops are we buying for the bus department? So this is okay, never mind.
Okay,
Scratch.
this is zoomed out as a whole.
Sorry, general public. I
Yeah.
apologize for that ignorant moment.
They have very elaborate, the bus viewer, that's what that is for, the bus viewer, that does not work.
But yeah, this would be district-wide replacement plans going into next year.
You squeeze bus and the new bus at the bottom, I'll put it all together.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, thankfully Tubbs, we do have a grant for a new bus next year, so that will reduce the needed amount for a bus. So at least we still need to chip in about 60 for that, depending on what it comes into. A lot of our laptops were bought with ESSER money, and so to prevent we're trying to replace them as annually, and so instead of having one big ticket thing and we're still in this 4 or 5 year cycle of buying them, trying to slowly replace them, if we could chip in more RAMs going up and tariff, so we'll see what we can do, but at least that's what I'm trying to preliminary put into that. I'm still getting with Catherine on one of the ID machines at one of the schools has gone down, so just allocating for that, but that'll put us about 153 for replacement plan stuff for going into next year. These are going to be our early, but
Is there only one ID machine? I mean, is there only a district ID machine?
there's an ID machine at each library, and part of our pre-budget meetings is what's broke, what's going on, is there anything I need to know about, and there was only one machine that was communicated to me that was broken, so going into preliminary budgets, I'm looking right now until we get property values. If property values are up a little bit higher than last year, but right now I'm looking about a 3% cut. I see purchasing, and this falls within the margin of what ending balances do usually end up at for campuses and departments. So it's not necessarily putting anybody in jeopardy, but this would be about the margin of error in which typically you're going to see about 3% left over in there. So that's going to be about where that number's coming from. Once I get certified values, if we plug it in and it doesn't have to be that, then obviously I don't want it to be that, but we just are in declining ADA. So I'm just preemptively trying to, and that's within the margin of where they typically end up. There are some cost categories that have, not cost categories, some departments that have gone up, and that's based on need, and we can go through them. I have them segmented out, so if you have any questions, we can roll through it. I can give you a general cost breakdown for each one.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So when it says amount, we're talking it is going down
Yes.
$425.
Yeah, so if it's in brackets, it's negative.
So basically, you've met with every department, and they know their budgets were cut by.
Right now, I'm waiting for property values to come out so I can see. I don't want to do that, but their stuff is going up. I'm trying to increase, it's until I get property values and get things plugged in that I'm just preemptively trying to give you something of where my head is at. So,
And thank you for this. I asked for this for 2 years. I don't know why it was so hard to get this, but to see that the board has a $26,000 budget, it's easy that the superintendent. I thank you for this. This is
that's part of the recalibration stuff. Yeah. Well, and there was just no clear lines drawn between campuses and departments. Sometimes there'd be, well, this is my money. Mary Sue told me to buy this 2 years ago, so it's always been in my budget. So drawing these lines and not letting transfers happen between these, obviously if something's gone on, but we do try to draw a line, and these are these funds for you only.
full transparency. If I'm getting cut 3, is the finance department getting cut 3? So this, no, I'm talking about in the past, we listened to all the principals talk about how their budgets were cut, but nobody else. This is a very clear. Every department, the superintendent got cut 3. So if you're a community member and you're listening to all the talk about how we're cutting campus budgets, but our administration offices adding to their budgets.
Does that mean our salary's going down?
And then
We gotta start paying to come in?
we don't apply the 3% to campus budgets because it's you still have students and you have to fund them, and so that's why we have that per student allocation. So that way it exists outside of the.
Well, that's the rumor mill. When every year in budget time comes up, it's the upper administration is hogging all the money, and campuses are suffering, and so this is just a simple document that kind of clarifies.
Yeah, and I've got breakdowns for each one, but this is just where we're going through. If you have a question on any certain page.
You ready for library?
I'm ready, yeah. Oh, God.
Okay.
I didn't know, Mr. Gaywood, if you talked with the city about numerous things over the course. I don't know if libraries come up at all, but I don't have an issue with our library. But my question is, how much of the 69,000 or the 67,000, which is going to be this next year, are we using for the community library?
Look one line down.
Yeah.
The 9,000.
I know, but are we using any of that 67,000? Because if we're spending 9 for the community library and the city's kicking in 1,000, that's not great. But if we're spending 67 for the community library and the city's kicking in 1, that's way, way bad. So I just want to.
That's worse than 5.
Worse.
That's way, way bad. Worse.
I don't know if you've had any conversations with the city at all about.
Actually, Mr. Buck, I sat down with Catherine Roberts, and actually that we're spending way more than that for the community library. What's hidden in that cost there, those are just for supplies. What's hidden is the actual manpower.
Right, I was gonna say $20
So-
an hour for all those hours, like, there's no way we're getting out of that for $9,000.
How many hours a year do they work?
They're working year round, ma'am. On in the evening, I have all the figures sitting on my desk, and I can forward that to you guys. I actually pulled out the foot traffic that comes into the library, the community library, not just ours. What outside services we're offering for just adults, such as GED and ESL classes that we offer adults in the community who are benefiting from that. So we offer quite a bit, and the contract was written in 1995 with a never-ending date, and it's $1,000. That's something I'm gonna have to revisit with the city because it's just an unfair contribution that they're putting towards us.
So the person who is working the community library is one of our employees, and they're getting $20 per hour when they're working it, correct? They're also getting paid for when they work for the school district. Is that, is it a blended rate? Like, how does that work? Because wouldn't the Fair Labor Standards Act say they're actually still doing the same job? So if they hit overtime, we're having to pay them time and a half to be in compliance with FLSA?
Let me research that and get you
Okay.
the numbers on that.
Because I think you can also do like, I know we have aides that'll also bus, and you do a blended rate, but I think there is still some sort of overtime in there.
So when I see it from the coding side, that payroll is coded to, I think, function 61, community service style stuff. Now I don't know who's doing, does that make sense? Like,
You don't know if it's Tasha Gore or if it's Randall Buck
So
working.
we do have separate payroll funding based on that function, which would be community who would be serving the after hour stuff. Now, who that human being is that's doing that,
I think I don't need to know who it is, but if they're a full-time employee of the school district, I do believe, and definitely look into this, but they are doing the same job. It would be like if we had somebody in maintenance who works Monday through Friday, 40 hours, and then we say, hey, we want you to come in and work Saturday in maintenance, but we're going to pay you contract. That's not legal. So we would have to figure out, I think we could do blended rate, or it's just straight overtime, time and a half. If it was it would actually be overtime the same job. If they were doing a different job, then it would be blended. You could do a blended rate or just pay them overtime. So I think my question is that $20 may not really be $20. It may be time and a half dollars. So I think that's my question.
I will research who's doing it. And this is, obviously, I like to back up things with data. I thought it was separate, like somebody was only the community service thing. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Okay.
It's not one of our own employees, like a para.
Yeah.
It is a
Is-
para.
It is an employee.
They're both, both full-time employees. Yeah, and they supposedly they clock out of their, HR could tell you differently, but they clock out of their day job at 4 o'clock, and then they clock in at 4:01 to the community library.
But same job,
Well, I was gonna
same
say,
roles.
From an HR standpoint, I'm not HR, you don't
Right.
know the difference, but I think the understanding is they're clocking out at 4 o'clock, clocking in at 4:01 for a different job, which is now working for the community library.
So anyway, if you could just check on that.
Maybe go on the city payroll and we kick in.
Right,
Yes, $1,000.
right. So, and then
Well,
that
under that context, that would be, you say same job, but it would really be more like you work at Exxon till 4 o'clock, then you move over to Whataburger and work till.
But at Exxon, I'm just
After.
checking you out for your Cokes, and then I'm cooking your burger. So it would technically be a different job. This is really same payroll, same job duties.
Except for the library wouldn't be open if it wasn't the community library. at
Agreed,
that
no,
time.
right, but it's still
It's
still
like
being
having-
paid by the same
It's
company.
like having two businesses under the same roof.
But it's the same company you're being paid for.
Hey, come in and work on this building, but we're gonna pay you out of the community library.
What?
Right.
There's a way with it.
Pay differently, like, cause this is the same as like bus aides and Sorry. So you're a bus monitor in the morning. You clock out of your bus monitor, you go to the elementary, you work your aide position at the elementary, you clock out of your aide position, you go be a bus monitor. How do we pay that any differently than?
It's a
blended pay.
blended rate.
Okay.
And it's
We're just
only
asking if the
when it
library pays the way.
When it comes to overtime, it's a blended rate.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because I feel like our $20 is really more than the $20. And then in the community library, does that include, do we pull out separately in code like electricity, all of those things? Because now we've got the power on, things like that. So I'm wondering, I just feel like that community library dollar is higher. So I'm just curious what all is
This is
included in that.
just the supplies. This would be
Just the supplies. So
this
we've
is
still
just-
got,
This is not payroll. This is not.
okay,
this,
nothing
these,
else.
All these.
This is just the paper and pens and this
This
and that.
is
Okay.
if Miss Roberts is on the community library side holding, I took my little girl to Bluey Day. There was a Bluey event. So, like, if the materials needed to have Bluey Day there would come from this community library thing during the summer. So, this is not the payroll side. This is just strictly, all of
Do we
these
have
amounts are.
plans to maybe talk some of the stuff Ms. Gore's talking about, as well as putting a presentation together and going and talking at a city council meeting? Because ultimately, the rumor right now in the community is the board is going to cut the community library, and that's not necessarily true. We love the community library, and we want to continue. I don't even have an issue with that $9,000 total. I just, if the real cost with electricity and everything else involved is $90,000 a year, $50,000, whatever total for people listening out there, I don't know what the total is. I'm just throwing numbers, but if it's $50,000 a year, payroll and all that, then if the city's not going to help pay the City of Venus Community Library a decent portion, then in essence it's the city canceling the community library, not necessarily.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm not saying either.
But do we have a plan to go to the city and talk about a partnership and maybe redoing that? Because back in the day, the community library wasn't open as much as it is now, and it didn't have as many things 25 years ago when I moved here. It has evolved quite a bit. So when that contract was written in 1995, it probably was $1,000 was probably a reasonable input to what.
To be open on Saturday for somebody to check out a book.
Yeah, maybe it was open just on Saturdays or so.
And we offer quite a bit during the summer. I mean, they have something every single day for June and July. They are open almost all day. I mean, it is really extensive up there. My grandkids enjoy it.
To answer your question, Mr. Buck, actually, I do have a plan to meet with the city manager about that library. Last week, I got the data from Mrs. Roberts, sat down with her. I wanted to know, what are we actually paying? Bottom line, it's more than just the supplies. It's more closer to the figures, around $68,000. That's what we're paying as a district, and they're giving $1,000. So right now, we have an equity issue. What's going on with them. I did put, like I said, again, I put the foot traffic for what people are coming to the library for, what programs are coming for, and the number of people. So I do have a plan to meet with the city manager.
And again, I cannot tell you how much I enjoy this today, because this has been one of the most extensive and comprehensive that we have had. And this is like year 9 for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. If you're more informed about the budget building process as a board, there's just less things you feel like. At the end of the day, we're trying to present and make sure we're taking care of students and everybody involved. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes into it, a lot of discussions and being able to hear. And, I may be thinking we need to talk about this a lot, and then we may hammer down on one thing. And so, and that's great because.
Sorry.
Oh, no. I mean.
Can I go to transportation? We done with library for now? Mr. Gatewood, this is a question. I know you followed Midlothian and their attempts at raising their numbers. Have we considered anything similar as to if you live in Patriot Estates or anything else offering transportation to those kids and allowing a transfer in for those? Midlothian said basically if their bus already goes to that area, they will gladly take you to well, I'm sure there's got to be a qualification, but they will bus you there. So I didn't know there's a difference between saying, hey, you can, if you live in Venus side of Patriot State, you can go to Midlothian, but there's another difference between busing them, because I don't think you get reimbursed from the state for busing if they don't live in the district.
No, sir, I have not considered that. Reason being, and I don't want to speak too much about another district. They're in a different financial situation than we are in.
Right.
Rather not play tit for tat with them, but I do keep an eye on what they're doing and seeing if it fits our students. Right now, it doesn't fit our students to just open up to, hey, if you live over in Patriot Estates, you live on the Midlothian sides, we'll drive over and come over and get you. It does not fit what we do here. Not saying that's something we can't entertain down the road, but right now it does not fit our students.
I didn't mean to talk about competing with Midlothian. That's not an answer. I was just, but with this new large 30,000 housing division coming up, Goodland, you know, there are going to be situations where, even in homesteads, there's situations where there's literally one house between us and Alvarado. I don't want to compete with anybody else, but if a kid applied for residency here, I applied for school here because they live literally in the same neighborhood, just a thought process, we're all going to be competing for kids in the next 5 years because of the way the situations are. So I just didn't know if that's maybe keep that in our future.
I mean, is that something we could do instead of going and picking them up at their house? Could we do like bus stops and say, hey, we're going to pick up at this street, especially for the ones that are, you know, we might have one or two that are trickling in, but we could say, hey, we're going to pick up where we already pick up some of our kids that are close to their house.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But like, there has to be a delineating factor of, like, there's Patriot Estates. If you live in Patriot Estates, we'll do it, because otherwise there's no end. That neighbor is that neighbor is that neighbor. Where do you draw the line instead of know somebody? But if you're in a division, so I would. That's going to take a lot of investigations.
Yes, sir, and that's totally a board's decision. That's totally you guys' decision. If you would like to open that up, I can do some research on just do the backtracking from a logistical standpoint. What would it cost us to pick up in diesel all over Patriot Estates? If that's something you'd like to entertain, so you can have actual data and numbers.
That'd be good.
Yeah, there just have to be a limit. It can't just be anybody. But if you live in Goodland, or if you live in,
He could go as far as city limits.
yeah, just something that's not this year, but next year. Sorry.
And that you know, could be a drawing line even.
Is that something you can get us the data?
ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And there's no hurry, because that's not this year's budget.
Right.
It's just something that maybe a board presentation in the future.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about childcare?
Sure.
I was just moving down the line. Is there any other discussion about extending our childcare to maybe becoming a for-profit? The only reason I ask that is that if the what is the program of Head Start, if Head Start comes in, that could potentially take a decent portion of our childcare kids out of our childcare. At least, what is it, 4-year-olds? Is it? So if you took all the 3 and 4-year-olds, you're talking about maybe 5, 6 kids, but the size of our daycare, if you took 5 or 6 kids out, then just the thought, we're already supplementing childcare again.
I don't think that he was in on the talks when we were talking about that, because that was a Dr. Torres question that we had already asked, and Mayo, Brandy brought it to us and said that it would take some time to do that, but I agree. I think that we should open it to the community. I don't remember all the things because it got shut down pretty quickly, so.
I will say this here, we are going to lose kids anyway, whether Head Start's come to or not, because we're in a unique situation with I was at the child care just last week and walked around, and every kid told me they were 4 years old, so all of them are leaving. A whole class is disappearing over, which is a good thing, over to the primary. Every kid, and that's kind of the first time that's happened, so it's it's really going to be curious to see how many staff members, kids that facility is holding next year, because every 4th grade classroom kid is disappearing. There are no 3-year-olds in that classroom.
Well, because we also don't make any money there. We're actually not
No,
even.
we're
Yeah, we're in the
supplementing.
red with them quite a bit, so.
A huge fan of the childcare. Don't
Me
get me
too,
wrong. I just,
100%.
if there's a way to go, public, I know there's also a plan in the city about a large childcare facility being built, but with our current infrastructure problems in the city, they're not issuing any more certificate of occupancy or sewer taps. So that's going to be at least a couple years. But I'm just, if we're
I think it's definitely something if we could look at, obviously not this year, but to see how,
Well, it could-
what it would cost to get us there. Because Brandy was over daycares or something. She had something like that where she had a lot of knowledge about that. And I'm going off memory of a couple years ago, but it seems like it was gonna cost quite a bit to do it. And then there was a lot to it, so I don't think we would be able to just say, okay, we're flipping the switch. But I think maybe, if not next year, maybe the following or something to look into for sure.
Yeah, 'cause we had to do something with, like, right now, we're able to like fund some of their, like, if they're not able to fund salaries, like, we house primarily a lot of that. I think it was the switch to say, hey, you have to make sure that you have enough revenue to pay for all the overhead, essentially, I think is kind of what she was saying.
On the accounting side, you'd have to set up like an enterprise fund. It would almost, you got food service, which is its own fund, activity funds. You would have to set up an enterprise fund, and then it becomes a profit and loss situation to where we have to absorb the losses. I had reached out to, and this has been a while since I've talked to Tammy, but when we represented this, I think when Deanne first got here, I had reached out to her about the community outreach. I was like, hey, how many times? She's like, obviously we're a school daycare, so people aren't just calling us school daycare and saying, but the call volume was very low as far as public reaching out to see if they had it. Obviously a lot can change in a year. So,
I don't think a lot of people know about it
Yeah.
unless you are in the school district or
Yes.
know somebody in the school district. New people coming
Yeah.
in would never probably know about the daycare,
If-
I don't
Yeah.
think.
Because go look at any of the Facebook pages
I was about to
asking for
say,
daycare.
Yeah.
yeah. If we were to make it public, it would have to be an enterprise fund on the accounting side. We would have to absorb any losses that they do take on and move it into the general fund, or not general fund, but out of our fund, because we are operating it, and it would have to involve some sort of data research. Hey, if we open up and did it, I know y'all know that, but there would be a lot of, like you said, a couple years out, making sure that we have some sort of survey, how many kids would come in, and then, if somebody opens up a daycare center, then we got to shift it back. And, there's a lot of variables that can be researched, but there's a lot of steps that would go into it. And like you mentioned, having a multi-year outlook on that would be something we would need to develop.
That's their general budget. We're not,
Yeah, that's just their general allocated.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I know last time we talked about budget, we were supplementing subsidizing the daycare by.
It was a lot, like
It was a lot.
165,000 or something like that.
But not that I'm a huge fan of the daycare, but if our numbers are dropping that much, it's also fair to the daycare employees to let them know that, if there's only gonna be 6 kids there next year, do we need a director, assistant director, to teach, those are things that also play into the budget, so.
Mhm.
Sorry for digressing.
Okay. Let me see.
Can I ask a question about maintenance?
Yes.
And this is probably Mr. Gaywood. I know we probably got a great deal on all the air conditioners that we got. A great deal on all the air conditioners we got that were going out of style or whatever it is, but it seems they're all breaking down. I didn't know if there's any thought going in the replacement plan of maybe a warranted product or something. I don't know. I'm sure you're on top of that, but is that replacement plan big enough to fix the number of replacements we're going to need going forward for this next year?
Yes, sir. The ones that's on the replacement plan right now, we have several that operate on Freon. Those are the first one, because once they're gone, they're gone. You can't fix a Freon unit. So my plan right now, told Mr. Lisby, is just to run those into the dirt. Once they're done we'll get rid of them. The ones that are constantly breaking down, we're constantly getting them fixed. Those are the newer ones. That's something I'd like to go back and look at their warranties. I don't know if we bought the Monday made air conditioners the year we bought them, but we do have quite a bit of problem with the newer ones. So the old ones, the crazy thing, the older ones that are Freon based, those rarely ever break down. It's the new Aeon ones that we purchase. As we do replace, we're not going to purchase Aeons because we haven't had a good tracker record with those. But we do have a plan, Mr. Buck, and right now the plan is to replace the ones that's on Freon, sir.
I just know we had a number of classrooms this last year that spent months, like 4 months, without AC, and we put swamp coolers in there, and it was a miserable situation. Stuff got ruined because of the humidity level, and I just that shouldn't happen. You know, if we're already trying to get the most out of our educational minutes, and then you got to put 3 classes in a gym because a unit went down. A unit, controls multiple classrooms. I want to make sure that total is enough that we don't have that problem. We can call and have a company come out and replace an air conditioner unit and get our kids back in class where they ought to be. So.
Yeah, part of that was their budget used to be rolled all into one amount, and so we do try to separate it out to say this needs to be spent on these units being replaced. So that's why used to it was just one big pot, maybe right, so that's why we, even though this is both maintenance, but we do separate it out and make sure that this is stuff that needs to get replaced. So as time goes on, maybe the cost category goes down and the flooring goes down, AC goes up, but this needs to be spent on the units or whatever is a top priority need to fix and replace.
The flooring that needs to be replaced.
That's grouped into that.
But what flooring are we going to replace?
It just may come out like I work with Ronnie on it. I can't remember exactly where it was. Maybe it was like the elementary, but carpet in XYZ classrooms, stuff like that. Different places. Just yeah, some.
Does that count gym resurfacing and all that?
Typically, if we allocate for flooring, it's any flooring style expenditure. So it's usually done on not as needed, but what is the top priority need what is the high traffic area, what needs to be done. And so as far as whether it's a gym floor, usually it's up to Ronnie to give us the information as far as what is the top priority need. But yeah, that would be allocated in the flooring style or side. And then on these, just if there's one that pops out, you want to know cost breakdown, what's going on. Insurance. So it's not necessarily deceiving, but the amount that was allocated this year, because when we switched to July 1 school start, our current TASB insurance was through September. So that allocation amount is a little bit lower because it was only had to cover 10 months. And so so it is a higher amount that is coming in, but it is because now we're back on a 12-month cycle. I haven't got TASBs yet, but I'm working with PCAT and I'm working with I can't remember the other one, but they're both co-op insurances. So we'll have 3 on that, 3 comparisons. I'm going to bring those in April so we can look at that and then have final approval in April on the insurance. So
take a copy paper and copy your leases. That $65,000, is that district-wide or is that just administration office? Copier leases are all copiers in the district.
So that $41,000 is what we're contractually pay Canon for for all of our copiers. So now it's coded out by, where it's located, like the copier lease. I can't remember how much they break down a unit, but let's say we have 41 units at 1,000. So $199.34 transportation would have 1,000 allocation, but that is the contracted amount we signed up for with Canon.
So I guess a question for Mr. Gatewood. Years ago, we made a financial decision to go 1-to-1. And the reasoning for that was we were going to cut our copier paper and our copier leases by 2/3. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm just curious as to have we gotten rid of any the understanding was going 1-to-1 that our copier, that's only $65,000 in our grand budget, so but be realistic, but have our copiers gone down? Every student is almost 1-to-1 in the secondary schools.
I think, but I don't know. but I think, I want to throw that out there. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, but I feel like it would be more of looking at a copy count, if you could, versus dollar amount, because who knows what the cost of paper is now compared to what it was. But I totally remember, that conversation that we weren't going to have to use as much. So I'm wondering if we are
We just talked
using
about
less
$90,000 for
paper.
replacing computers.
Right.
All these kids have computers. I just want to make sure that the commitment we had was, you know, if we're still spending $70,000 a year on copiers and copy paper, then, and I get elementary and primary aren't. They're not. I just want to see there's a return on that investment of 1-to-1.
I'm just curious. I think for me, it's going to be, are we making less copies? Because I don't know how we would be able to look at the price of paper then and now.
Yeah, whatever the comparison is,
I'm
I
with
just
you.
want to see that from your desk, are we making a conscious effort in reducing, you know, some of those costs or some of those usages based on, you know, on the investment we made for 1-to-1.
And I'm gonna say this is probably unpopular, but I'll say it anyway. I don't think we can cut corners on papers. I view technology as something that supplements tier 1 instruction. I'm a little old school. I think kids need to use paper, write things out more. I was actually pleased as I walked through the middle school and saw them doing their STAR exam for English other day. All the kids were utilizing all the paper, writing on it with their strategies that Mr. Vornum taught them, and I was ecstatic. I just think we cannot cut corners on paper because, again, I view technology as just something that supplements education. Nothing beats that teacher in front of that student's teaching with paper and pen, sir.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there is just sometimes we have instructional material that is they have to print it out, so you do have those costs. At least on the copier lease, when I worked with Warren on this, we did reduce the number of big units we had, or if somebody has a big multifunction, do you really need that? Can we give you a smaller printer? So there was some thought into the copier lease total cost of this department doesn't need this big fancy one. Like there was a lot of that, but there still is the unit of just sometimes paper is just needed. The big I do work with campuses and departments on this is color copies are about 3 cents, and then black and white it's about 600% more expensive to print on color than it is black and white.
They shouldn't have access to a color copy though. Teachers shouldn't.
That's up to they do have it available at the campus level, and so it does hit their campus budget. And so departments pay for their copies and stuff like that. Yeah, and so that is one way to control just general district expenses is to limit color copies, because it is 600% more expensive to print color. And if you've got a teacher that's not paying attention, not a teacher, anybody that is employed by the district's not paying attention, rips 100 copies in color, because when I make a copy of this, the printer will say, oh, there's blue and red, so that's a full color copy right there. So that is one way to, in the world of, there's typically a general standard paper usage that we still have to maintain even though we are digital. Tackling the actual expenditures on the color and the black and white side, that's one way as a district level we can tackle that. Because typically when I run our Canon invoicing, if somebody's way upside down on color printing, I'm like, hey, if you need it, that's fine. I can't tell you that you don't need it, but maybe you don't know that you've got color default. It's 600% more expensive, because at the end of the day, that does add up. If we're ripping 50,000 copies, 600%, that's a lot. So I do try to tackle at least the cost saving side on that.
So district utilities.
Mm-hmm.
I've had this conversation 4 or 5 times. No one's ever gotten back with me. I don't know if Mr. Gateway has been involved in this or not. Have we considered a utility incentive for the district? So, like at Waxahachie, it's $1,500 a month, or maybe a pay period, whatever it is. The campus that has the most savings of the district utilities gets $1,000 to go to their activity fund, to help feed teachers or something just fun. But that makes sure that before principals leave, they do an active sweep to make sure all the lights are out. Somebody is assigned to lights. The custodial department is turning out lights when they get done with the deal. And it's led by principals because they want their campus to win. I guess every campus, and it's percentages. So Ms. Buck would be at a great disadvantage because her building is the most inefficient. But if she spent $10,000 last year on water bill, and this month it was only 6,000, then you do a percentage of the savings, and then, you know, if $1,000 a month, whatever it is, if we're saving $50,000 a year on stuff, but it's only costing us $9,000 a year in payout, you know, we netted $41,000 in savings. Just a thought. I don't know. I guess that's probably Mr. Gatewood. Mr. Torres and I had that conversation a couple times, and never mind.
And actually, sir, I'm glad you mentioned that. And you can ask any staff member before going on break. I always mandate that, hey, for instance, spring break, unplug stuff, clear out your refrigerator, turn off lights, close blinds. Those are things that we have been doing. We don't have any official document written down. There's no incentive, but we can do that. That's something that I'm willing to entertain because everything does help. We need to turn those things off.
But even not like $1,000, even if you, like, I know during a convocation you offered to buy a campus lunch or something, whatever, but even if you got away with buying a whole campus lunch, if the teachers thought, hey, if we win this month, we get chicken express, Chick-fil-A, whatever it is, but that gives them an incentive to make sure their lights are turned out when they walk out of their room. And, you know, principals help reinforce that. And now, if everybody, even the ones who don't win,
Yes, sir.
if they saved, you know, the winner's going to save, but if everybody across the district saved, I mean, I can't tell you how many times water's left on. You know, a water fountain that's running, you know, why is it running for 3-4 days without getting fixed? You know, at least the maintenance guy can come and turn the water off. So,
Yes,
it, you know, so just little ways that, I mean, that's $1 million.
Are those bills split out?
The utilities?
Where you'd be able to easily see the high schools, okay.
Yes, they are. I know gas is for sure. Sometimes the city, they are split out. Usually it's by like address, like where it's at. So you might run into maybe the group in the athletic, like the field house into it, even though it's the same address. So they are broke out. Figuring out what we call this building, even though it's this there's a method to figure it out. We can do it. It would just take some figuring out what they list as 123 Street, where that's that building. Oh, why? It's paid from the same line code, the utility line code, but figuring out what they consider, what address houses the building, even though it may be on the same property as middle school, but it also includes figuring that is something that we could do. Yes.
I just know, having a wife is a principal, how many days in the middle of on a Saturday we go up there and all the lights are on. All the lights are on. So somebody left them on. I don't know if it's custodial. We're having a conversation with our custodial company that the expectation is if they're not actually in the room, the light's out. I don't know how to do that, but that just seems like $1 million a year. That just seems like an easy way to squeeze $60,000-$70,000 in savings a year that could go somewhere else besides water and electric and gas. So, the gyms are set at, we come up here over spring break and the gym's set at 67 degrees for the food bank, and we're air conditioning our gym at 67 degrees and nobody's even at school for a week. So so just thoughts like that.
Mr. Haywood, something you might ask Ronnie about, maybe do compare a cost breakdown for, is putting the motion instead of a switch in classrooms. When no one's in there, they walk out, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to forget, because it goes off when there's no motion. And I mean, I've got them in different places in the house, kids' rooms, stuff like the bathrooms. You walk in, it comes on, you walk, no motion, after so long shuts off. Then you wouldn't have to worry about that. And I know those switches, for me to buy them one at a time, aren't that expensive. I could imagine buying a few hundred of them, they'd be even cheaper.
Yeah. And there's also knowing what's connected, what we can see, if we have AC connected at a universal like web login point, offering some sort of data analytical assistance into the maintenance department to make sure that we have proper settings set to, times and, looking into that is something I do want to add to our, because it is a big cost category.
Did we ever go any further on that company that came and did that
Ideal impact.
That was gonna do all those cost savings or whatever.
For free?
Yeah.
Right, and then splits the profit difference or whatever. Did we ever, I don't remember if we ever did anything with that. Okay.
You talking about the
Well-
Seiko inspection, sir, when it came?
Free for them,
Yes.
but it's like $500,000 for us. So what they do is they come in and they say, we're gonna switch every one of your lights over to the automated where it turns on and off. We have to pay that, and then at the end of a year, all that cost savings we have, because, we spent $500,000 on upgrading all this equipment, LED lights and all that, and then they take 30% of the electricity savings. That's what they make. So we Yeah.
just do that on our own
That's what I'm saying. If we assigned a person
without giving them our 30%.
to walk through every building when they get off work, and your job is to, I don't know, whoever it is, but everybody has a
We
building.
can give
you
them a
walk through, make sure all the
stipend,
lights are
a
out.
light stipend. I like it.
But that's free to us, and like even switching out some of those switches, like
I just
Like
wasn't
Donald
expecting to
said.
hear that.
Money is currently doing that. Anytime a fixture light goes out, he is replacing it with LEDs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. So,
Mr. Russell is correct. I was just about to add to that. That is something we're doing slowly on our own. As something goes out, let's get more efficient. And unfortunately, we still have some places with fluorescent lights, and we're running it till it goes out.
Okay, I have two questions. Okay, so substitutes, 160. I cannot remember, did he say that's what we're actually spending?
he said there was no price increase for the upcoming.
I know, but are we actually sending them ESS that money? Is that how much we're actually spending on them?
Yeah, so we increased it from last year to this year, and we're approaching that funding amount. And so it is, I'm glad we're hitting fill rate, but there is a cost savings implementation for the campus wide to make sure people are making sure it's being properly utilized, because we did increase it and we're approaching potentially having to increase it again. So make sure you're here on this day. I don't want to increase it because I feel like if you increased it about $40,000, that we don't need to increase it again, because the rates are relatively the same. But having it is just, we are in April and we're approaching that cost category right now. So
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question, and I've asked this before, and I asked Dr. Torres, and I actually asked Hopper also. Is it not more effective for us to pay for a couple of subs? I know we need more than 4, but would it be not more cost effective to have some floating subs that we can go from, or we keep one at the primary and they go fill in where they need to, one at the middle school? I know we need more than 4, but is there a way to offset? Yes, yes, it's a floating pair that just goes in and goes to where is needed.
And I've seen that in different districts. Typically, districts do have that. It's just a person that's on staff. They're just the utility player. They go here and there. I've seen that.
3 full-time substitutes who come to work every day at the high school of Waxahachie, and we use them every day.
Exactly.
And if you don't need all 3 of them, then we use them somewhere else. They go help in the special ed department, and they go do something else.
Exactly. So that's my question. Would it not be more, again, I know we need more than 4 because our fill rate is not even being filled
But I
with.
think, so with the substitutes, if we were to look at their hourly rate, not all up with benefits and workers' comp and all of that, is it about the same hourly rate that we would pay ours here?
I can look at it. I would.
Because the reason I'm asking is it's just going to be a 1-for-1 no matter what, because in that 160, you're paying them their hourly rate, plus you're paying for their workers' comp, you're paying for their benefits, you're giving them the state days, the local days, all of that stuff, which this includes all of that. So it would really just be a wash. What that having somebody floating would really be, it wouldn't be a dollar piece. It's going to just be making sure we have somebody to fill a classroom. So if we're getting the fill rate, if we're actually filling, it's going to really be really about the same because we've got to pay all of those things.
I don't think we're getting the fill rate. I don't think we're getting better than what we were. I just don't think that we're not 100% filled.
We're not
Well,
100%
I mean, nobody
filled,
is,
but we are getting better. Where 3 people, I think we're probably getting better by having at least 3 more fills. So I think if we were to do that, it would have to be a lot of people, but I think we have to look at, are we looking at the dollar amount? Because I think the dollar amount's gonna be pretty much a wash with everything. Or are we looking at, we need fill rate, and if so, that's a different conversation with him.
Maybe just an investigation, because this is just giving you information. If we could just look at what it costs, because it costs, we pay them $80, but we pay $130, I think, a day for a sub to the company. So is it,
If it's the same.
if we hired 2 per campus,
If it's the same hourly rate though, say it's the same hourly rate, it's gonna be the same hit to us
right,
either
that's what
way.
I'm saying, maybe just look
Yeah.
at the pay and see if it is the same hour. If we hired an aide, if we hired 2 aides per campus, how much would it cost us per day with the benefits? and everything?
Because they give us a markup rate, correct? So it's
Yeah.
$10 plus a percentage, I'm just
Yeah.
using $10 for my easy math skills, but it's $10 and then it's a 30% markup. And what that 30% markup covers is
Benefit.
the benefits, the person, you know, because they've got to make money.
Yeah.
So, but that's what that's covering. So if there's a way to figure out, you know, like you said, the $80 divided by how many hours in a day, which gives you the hourly rate plus their hourly rate. I think you're talking apples to apples.
Total crazy thought. And I'm just saying, right now, we're approaching $160,000 a year for substitutes. You know, just crazy thought. How much would it cost to hire 4 aides per campus for an entire year and do away with the subsystem?
4 aides per campus? Well, you gotta, but you look at the aides' hourly rate, or what
I'm
they
talking
make
about
in
benefits,
a year, but then you've gotta add in the benefits, the workers' comp, the
Yeah.
taxes, you know, you've gotta add in all of that to get an all-up number.
I'm just saying, that's a crazy thought, but I'm just saying.
I have a feeling that
gonna
would
be
cost more
Yeah.
than this. And then you could be dealing with I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just don't think the dollars would, but you know what? I'm not the
I mean,
finance
but if you
guy.
hired 4 per campus and this campus only needed 2, the other 2 were available to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've never seen that done anywhere. That was just a stupid idea that just came.
No, it's not stupid. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I just don't think we would see for this purpose of
Probably
the
not.
budget. I don't think we would see what we're hoping to see, which would be spending less money.
Yeah.
Well, I worry about springtime, because springtime, there's kids going all over the place. I don't think there's I'm on those email strands, and there's coaches and kids going all over. I think we would exceed those 4 per campus in the springtime.
If it was a good idea, somebody would have done it already, so it's probably not a good idea.
How many days do they work?
160.
That was one. Okay,
Okay.
so my next question is, I see on here softball maintenance, softball, baseball maintenance, which is, okay. Dumb question, because I know even last night when it rained, softball girls had to leave from here and go to Alvarado to play. So we are having to pay other towns to use their facilities when it rains because we cannot use our fields. We're already paying almost $1 million. How much, and I do not know, how much does it cost for us to turf these fields? I mean, because we're not gonna have to pay the maintenance that we're paying every year for this. So is it more cost effective to turf them where we can actually not pay $1 million?
It is 100,000.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah, 100, I'm sorry.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't
100,
want to
yeah.
make sure the public.
I did say $1 million. I was,
When
yeah, no,
Yeah.
so 100,000, I'm
Okay,
sorry,
yeah,
100,000.
just for the people at home.
Hold on, yeah, I have I was looking at the wrong side
So-
of my glasses.
I think last time this was brought up, it was, and I don't know the price, but ballpark, it was $400,000-$500,000 field is a general. Does that sound about right per field?
It was when we did the.
No, that was just to replace an existing turf. Cost a whole lot more to put the thing on to start with.
On the baseball
Because we
field?
had to dig that thing 4 feet out before we even put.
On a all the data will tell you on a turf field, on a 10-year plan, it's about a wash. So, but to put at $100,000 a year for this maintenance for us, you know, that over a 10-year plan is about $1 million. You could probably turf the infield of the baseball and the softball field for $500,000, a little bit more than that. Now, probably not the outfield. The baseball outfield is a lot bigger, and that's not counting, you know, the dirt replace, something like that. But it would probably be about a wash over a 10-year plan. The question is, before when we talked about it, was how do you find the $1 million to do it? So, but all the data will tell you when you're looking at turf, it's about over a 10-year plan, it's about a wash if you're doing your maintenance correctly. So they were not doing it correctly on a softball field, but right before a softball season, they changed the guy, and it got, I think Mr. Gatewood talked to him, and they kind of. But I agree with that, Ms. Grafton. Sorry, that I'd love to see that, but.
Well, I mean, because I also know that we have to pay to go to these other towns to use their fields. So where does that money come from?
So
I mean, because they're paying anywhere between.
Well, like last night was lightning. It wasn't
Right.
field. It wasn't.
No. The field it got too dangerous. That's what was told. It was too dangerous to play on the field, and they got moved. It was not lightning. It was a 40-minute delay, but no, it was because it was too dangerous to play on the field. They had to come over and finish over in Alvarado. And that's only because we were on a 40-minute delay in Alvarado.
So athletics has a miscellaneous expense account, and that's like fees, stuff like that. That's where that would come from.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that's a long time past of just doing the infields at least. That's where your biggest problems come in. But you could regrade the outfield to where it drains better and add French drains out there for a lot cheaper than turf. But
That's all I had.
All right, got that down. I think that's it. So, is there anything in general, you know, next budget workshop like this, we'll have more concrete numbers and data and revenue and expenditures. Is there anything else outside of this? I know we've talked a lot about the stipends, getting that cleaned up. Is there any other, I have a lot of data requests I scribbled down, but as far as the actual, is there anything else?
May for me is a terrible month.
Okay.
Between 3 graduations so Saturday in May would be hard pressed. So if there's any way we can get the information that kind of like we did out early to where we can review it and then do a 45 minutes before a board meeting or something like that. I know it's not all about me, but I can only speak for me. That would be better for me than doing a Saturday, because May is a pretty busy time. I mean, even an evening like a weekday evening or something like that, but Saturdays for me is tough. So just when you're looking at days, but like you did today, outstanding, best one I've been to.
Thank you.
Between Mr. Gatewood and this information, kudos.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll get with Rosie and kind of see how we need to align stuff and see what best works for everybody involved.
Is the salary stuff a part of its own, like pay, stuff like that?
So
is that a part of its own budget?
So what we would do is we would bring this is our pay schedule. This is what we, if you get hired as blank, this is what we would pay you. Or if you're a teacher, this is your step scale. So that will be brought, probably should be brought and be about the May meeting where this is our pay scale we're bringing. Do you approve of it? So that's where that there's not a lot of changes. We're not adding a lot of positions. I think the only core changes is House Bill 2. We have to pay an uncertified year 0 teacher less than a year 0 certified teacher. So little legislative tweaks like that. But outside of that, we're not adding. It should be.
I've brought this up before, and I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but I know I got yelled at. I won't say by any of the ladies on the thing, but. Oh, did I say ladies? I apologize. I would just like to go back and look at how the teachers are on a step scale. So there are teachers that have been teaching less time that make more money than some of our administrative principals, assistant principals, stuff like that, because they aren't on that step scale. I don't think that's right. I could be alone in this. I don't know, but I feel like the leaders of our campuses, with their experience, with their certifications they have to have just to get to those spots, we need to look at somehow consider putting together some sort of step scale for them. I don't care what other districts do. I know a lot of people, oh, well, no one, they traditionally don't do that. But traditionally it's wrong. It's just wrong. And I think we need to look at that, and it may be not something doable for this upcoming one, but I don't think it's right that campus leaders are have people who have been in the business long or less time, but simply because they stayed as a teacher. A principal could quit, come back a week later, and get all her time and make more money. But why should they have to go through that process just to get a raise?
I get
And I don't know where it fell flat the last time, but I know I hadn't heard anything on it about that, and I haven't seen it in the budget.
Okay.
So I'm just curious if we can look at doing something like that for these administrators.
And even something, it's not, even something like a 5-year evaluation. Like, like I said, if you started working here as an administrator and you signed on for $50,000 and you never left, 20 years later, you're still making $50,000. Whereas a new principal coming in is making 90 or whatever it is. So maybe even if you only did it every 3 years, every 3 year an evaluation of, so every 3 years we're going to reevaluate. Maybe not. I mean, I'm great with yearly, but somebody who, as a reward for staying here a long time, every 3-4 years we'll do an evaluation of your salary and get you back up to where the market rate is for 3 to 5 years. I don't know what. Like I said, I don't know anywhere else, but I'm with Donald on. Maybe it's not done that way, but it's just.
Well, especially
there's no benefit to stay.
Their responsibility.
Leave here, go to Waxahachie. I make 15,000 more. Leave Waxahachie, come back to Venus. I make 5,000 more just for leaving. I leave Venus, I go to Midlothian. I make 5,000 more. I leave, and it's just a constant skipping back and forth. Let's just cut the middle guy out, and because you're going to pay the next guy the same anyway. When I leave, you're going to pay the next guy. So
whoever's going to take your spot has the same amount of time you do. We're going to give them that money. Why not just give it to you? Especially if they're a good, a principal, assistant principal. They're qualified.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about the sub pay? Is there any way to break that out by campus, like how much we're paying per campus? I can only assume which campus probably pays out the most, but I would just like to see which campus. I can deduct on why one campus or two campuses pay out more, but I would like to see like per campus, how much are we, like where do our subs fit in if we can break that out to.
Do
we have like an athletic issue or do we have like an attendance issue, right? Can we maybe see it just data driven on that?
I can get you the numbers on
Okay.
that.
Can you drill that down to athletic? Take out the athletic absences without.
When you go in, you can put that you're doing school business. So you
I know, but can they do that on I guess they can.
So,
now.
because we get invoices from ESS, and I don't know how that data, like we get the ESS amount, and then I know what it is per campus, how that information is, so we could try to tie when they put in an absence school, I don't know how, yes, there's a data path there, whether the ESS data invoicing has that data there, or we have to kind of like string to it. I can at least give you campus total expenditures too, for sure.
Or you can just, when you put in for your day off, when they go in and put their day off, it's got to either say professional, professional business or, just personal. So, you should be able to do it that way. That's an HR thing. They should be able to do that. But I do agree. I think that, your high school, middle school is going to have more for athletics and, and FFA and stuff like that than you are. But again, is it because we have teachers' absences? Is that an issue? Because we've already discussed that this year.
Along those lines, just tied into budget-wise of substitutes, I guess the superintendent, how far away are we from this is one of the few schools I've ever been at that we have so many crossover teachers. That you have a whole bunch of high school coaches at the work at the middle school, and I just know how close are we to getting that down to where a middle school teacher is a middle school teacher and a middle school coach, and a high school teacher is a high school teacher. And I know some of it is availability and hiring the best person, and sometimes you got to have but I just didn't know, because I think that plays a lot into, we talk about different holes at different campuses. Well, when you're missing 7 people, because I'll just take the middle school for example, when 5 of those are high school coaches, those and the subs don't fill, you gotta cover that somewhere, and that gets covered somewhere either in the department. So now your math teachers are doubling up classes. That affects math instruction or science instruction. Just you don't have to answer that. I just didn't.
Actually, I can answer that. It drives me crazy. One of the things that I talked to Dr. Vega about as we go into the hiring season, also as Coach Gober, if it's possible, if we have to share personnel, that those coaches are not in core subjects. It's different if I am an elective teacher, right now we have a coach that's a math teacher in a critical area. And a math teacher, he's a high school coach, but he works at the 7th grade middle school. That puts a strain on that core academic area to where we need to improve at. So I don't like seeing that. We're far way off from just being the middle school having their own staff and the high school having their own staff and not sharing. That's just the nature of the business. We're not there yet. But yes, sir.
New high schools built, those kids.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. Yeah, that's not going to work then. But we're a little bit off right now. But in the interim, let's make sure they're not core subject teachers, because that puts. You're right. Now you have double the kids in a math class. They're sitting down there in the annex and different things like that. No, we go to gym. We've got to get away from that.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? No? Okay, we're gonna move to number 9, adjournment at 11:57.